evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and I trust everyone had an enjoyable, safe Thanksgiving holiday, so we're happy to see you back with us tonight. This work session of the Board of Trustees of the Spring Independent School District is officially called to order on Thursday, December the 5th, 2019. The time is now 6:11 p.m. Board trustees present are Winfred Adams Jr., Chris Bell, Deborah Jensen, Justine Durant, Jana Gonzalez, and myself, Rhonda Newhouse. I would like to ask everyone to turn off or silence their cell phones or electronic devices at this time. Thank you. The next order of business is a review of the minutes from previous meeting. Does any trustee have any changes or corrections to the minutes of November 7th, 2019 board work session, the November 12th, 2019 regular meeting, or the November 18th, 2019 special call session? Corrections? Hearing none, these items will be submitted as a part of the consent agenda at the December 10th, 2019 Board of Trustees regular meeting. We'd now like to hear from our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Rodney Watson.
Thank you, President Newhouse and other trustees. Good evening. Actually, hopefully you all had a great Thanksgiving. I know we've seen each other a lot here lately, and just the other day. I do want to publicly say what a wonderful time we had yesterday at our memorial. So thank you all so much for being there. Our agenda for tonight is pretty straightforward. One of the things we look at doing every year, bringing earlier and earlier, is our education planning guide. And this is the guide that our students, our parents, and our counselors use as they're selecting classes for the next year. And so we have a presentation for you regarding our EPG for the year. In addition, there's been a lot of work that's been done since our last update regarding our curriculum. And so Ms. Bradford will be providing an update regarding our curriculum. Once again, Lift 6, our middle schools in the area that we're continuously focusing on. And so you'll get an update as to what's happening in our middle schools, and then the update as well regarding our targeted improvement plans that you all received in September. And so we're providing an update as what's happened to date. That does conclude the announcements for today, and we'll get started with the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next item is agenda participation, which allows members of the public an opportunity to speak on agenda items before those items are considered by the board. Chief Hill, do we have anyone registered to speak under agenda participation?
No, Madam President, we do not.
Thank you, Chief Hill. So for our next item, I'd like to recognize our Chief of Curriculum and Instruction, Charles Bradford.
Thank you and good evening. Thank you, President Newhouse, Dr. Watson, members of the board and cabinet. Tonight I'll be bringing you the update on the education planning guide as we begin preparing for the upcoming school year. Our education planning guide does focus us on opportunities and choice for every family. We really do look at expanding it within reason to ensure that students find themselves in really courses that interest them and also lead them to pathways beyond the K-12 environment. This is found in your light blue folder. The presentation is in there. And you should also have a lovely copy of our high school education planning guide, hot off the press from our communications department, available for you to review as well. So our goals with the EPG every year, we really strive to ensure that Spring ISD families have robust curricular and academic course catalog to choose from, and the academic planning guide really guides and gives us the opportunity to communicate these courses with families at school, online, and during district events. We make revisions to the education planning guide each year following updates from TEA as well as local reviews. So this really is our goal, is just to consider also trends in the job market, student interests, and we also ensure that we are crosswalking courses with our local colleges for dual credit classes. We are under the Foundation High School program, and we ensure that all students have the opportunity to follow the the Foundation High School program for graduation as established by the Texas Education Agency in Chapter 74 of their curriculum requirements, which really does outline all of our course requirements in graduation. Students also following a coherent sequence of courses have the opportunity to earn endorsements in these 5 areas, including science, technology, engineering and mathematics, business and industry, public services, arts and humanity, and multidisciplinary studies. So with our guide, we always are focusing on the end in mind so that graduation and completion of the high school program is 100% of our focus. And it does begin before students enter high school, starting at the elementary school for sure. So these are the Chapter 74 requirements that we just make sure that we are including within our planning guide. And as updates come from TA and from legislation, from local, of course, policy, we make sure that we update it every year to stay current. We also follow any House bills that may come out, NCAA rules, and TEA requirements. So beginning with students transitioning into middle school is really when our education planning guide really becomes effective. We have a middle school planning guide, and so starting with families as students are leaving 5th grade and entering into 6th grade is when they can start selecting courses and all throughout their middle school years. So we really want to foster both thinking of rigor and considering challenge. We even have pre-AP courses at our middle school that students can select. So really it is also the first time that a parent in middle school would then be selecting courses for their students. Once our scholars are in middle school, you can turn to that next page where we'll talk about the middle school to high school transition. We really are looking at students' interests. So in middle school, they take a variety of classes to really find out what they're interested in, looking at their experiences, their unique abilities, to begin planning for that 8th to 9th grade transition, and as they are then thinking about what classes they are most interested in taking in high school. And hopefully we'll get this back up. And then looking at the high school to college transition. So at the high school level, our education planning guide, which you all do have a copy of right there with you, ensures that scholars are taking courses both for their state and local credits to satisfy those requirements for graduation. Also looking at the coherent sequence of courses so that students can earn one or more endorsement. We also follow job market trends as we look and vet programs that we would want to offer in Spring ISD, and also thinking about what easily aligns to college classes that students may have. So our future focus really is a team effort that spans across multiple departments. It is not just curriculum and instruction. We also really work closely with CTE. We work very closely with our multilingual department. Advanced academics plays a huge role in this, school leadership, as well as communications to really pull this together for us all. So there are some specific updates that I want to share with you that we made this year. Starting with middle school, really refining the descriptions for a few of our intervention classes. The reading intervention class offered 6 to 8, which also gives some foundational literacy opportunities for students who may need it, as well as a similar mathematics class and numeracy, which really does focus in those classes around small group instruction to meet the needs, the individual learning needs of each student. On the next page, slide 10, some electives that are being offered are AVID, and I don't know if you all have heard about AVID, but it's just advancement via individual determination, and it's really looking at teaching study skills, note-taking, time management, some writing skills, as well as, of course, that leadership officer training, which you guys got to see firsthand the other day at the launch of our memorial that we have with our Spring Leadership Academy students. So that military science course is also available this year in our middle school educational planning guide. You'll see the updates that begin with the high school on slide 11. Looking at advanced academics, offering an AP computer science principles courses. Also this year we decided to start small and begin offering a barbering pilot at Westfield High School. So we'll have some 10th grade students that will begin with this pilot to really start and grow it and pilot it out this upcoming school year, as well as offering some advanced multilingual courses in Spanish 6th and 7th. So for our students who want to take more of those advanced classes, we do know that with our IB program at the middle school, those students are taking a language, and so when they go into high school, they'll be ready for the the higher level Spanish courses as well. And then the final piece is the additional updates this year, dual credit offerings. So Lone Star did update their crosswalk, and so we have updated our education planning guide so that we match their dual credit crosswalk. So they made updates. We took those updates and ensured that that aligns and matches with our work so that our students have the opportunity to benefit from those dual credit courses offered at Lone Star. You all will also notice in your folder you should have a timeline, and this timeline really does also connect to that last thought of family and community focus. So we do share this educational planning guide out to the community so that families really have the opportunity and students have the opportunity to select courses. Our timeline actually begins with a lot of internal work happening, cross-functional teams, reviewing the previous planning guide, reviewing local updates. Lots of revisions happen. After tonight, if you guys will see, or after Tuesday, December 10th, you'll see how then the educational planning guide goes from our offices out to the district, onto the website. Communications team has a great strategy to share it out, to send blasts out. And so that in January, students and families are well aware of the opportunities that they have and the scheduling process can begin. So that's how it moves through our departments and then out into the community. So we do provide a lot of electronic access, but we also have families that attend campus meetings so they can get hard copies of it as well. We do send hard copies through our counselors who have those available to have conferences with students and with families. So with that being said, that wraps up my update for the educational planning guide. Do you all have any questions?
Ms. Bradford. I guess I look around and I see we're all smiling because we're all thinking the same thing. This is the first time we have gotten this early in the school year. And it's very impressive because we've always said the earlier that we get it, that our students and parents get it, the better selections that they have, the more time. And of course, it allows us to riffle down and get our teachers and our courses in place and have everybody with their schedules by the end of the school year, which Dr. Lapita and I have talked, Dr. Hinojosa and I have talked about. We need to enforce making sure we have our schedules ready before students leave the campus in May, and any corrections from summer school or anything are done, such that when we come back in August, we have a beautiful picture. It's all clean. So this is very nice that we're starting this early. I'll turn it
Thank you.
over.
On the family and community focus, are we going to have sessions like at the schools to where there's an opportunity for parents to come and visit with maybe counselors or teachers to get a better understanding? I was always one of those, I'd like to sit down and look through it and be able to ask questions. Are we going to have any opportunities for
Yes,
students?
so I'll share one opportunity, and then I know Dr. Hinojosa can share more. One opportunity is our performing and visual arts team definitely goes out to the elementary schools and talks to the fifth graders, and even has some parent nights even at the middle school to let parents see what's available, what options, what instruments or programs are they interested in. So that's one group that's very intentional. And then do you want to talk about the counselors aspect of it?
Absolutely, and I know as Ms. Newhouse was talking about having it early, this is a phenomenal opportunity for our counselors to come back in January, and we begin that opportunity to share with parents, have those parent meetings, and after they speak to the parents, then they have sessions with students. We do that at the high school, so ninth graders, rising ninth graders going into 10th grade, but also most importantly, and you heard Ms. Bradford talk about that this really starts with the middle school. It's the first time those meetings and sessions with middle schools middle school parents are so very important because we're acclimating them into this process.
Right.
So middle school counselors will do the same thing, and the high school counselors will come down to the middle schools and do those opportunities. And have them really understand what pathways are and what all the
Right.
courses really entail.
That's a lot to kind of comprehend at one time. And I think also you mentioned the AVID. That is, to me, that's phenomenal. That study, learning how to study and take notes, that's so important as they're getting ready, especially to go into that high school campus. Thank you.
Thank you. My question was, one, this is fantastic, and so I'm really excited about it. I love how we, of course, aligning our offerings with Lone Star, preparing, looking forward with our IB campus and what our kids are going to need for Spanish as they begin to enter into our high schools. My question is centered around how and what process do we use when we assess what additional offerings we're going to have? Is there any community or teacher input in that process? And what are we doing as we look futuristically? So now you've added Barbara, that's great. So I'm sure there's more that do other phases that you have planned. So can you tell us a little bit about
Sure,
the
I can
process
speak.
itself and where we're
Yes,
going?
definitely just some. If you notice on the timeline, there should be a part where campuses actually are able to, yes, so by November 11th, campuses are actually able to put in requests as well for courses that they would like to see added or approved. And so that's really where we have teachers giving input,
Okay.
counselors giving input, principals even giving input to courses that they would like to see offered. So we do include that as a process, and then it goes through a large disciplinary committee. So there's directors from multiple departments who then make considerations, and then it goes to the chiefs and to district level leadership to make the final determinations. We also do attend a lot of our Region 4 meetings where TEA will make changes. So this year there's a lot of changes coming out for our CTE program. And so they do give recommendations based on, what's current and also just following the state trends. And then also looking locally at what really our students in Spring ISD, what would their career paths be when they leave us? What's the local community, the business community as well? Dr. Hinojosa, you want to add anything?
So the other piece, the other component, including everything that Ms. Bradford talked about for us, and you mentioned Barberine, we do the survey with our students and our parents and our CTE advisory board. So they've been giving this input to us, and we have to match it with our workforce and the high yield, high wage employment. And so, yes, this Barberine has been as a huge request year after year. And so as we partner with Lone Star and they get their courses aligned, we also partner with our industry partners. In this case, you'll soon be seeing an MOU coming with Maestros. And so we'll be partnering with them. So the input from the students, the parents, the industry partners through our CTE advisory board, then eventually the process that Ms. Bradford described will then end up in this education planning guide. Also, while we are looking at what courses we put in, we're also analyzing, and so our CTE department right now is analyzing the current courses because we have to also look at what's effective, what's working, where are the students enrolling and what are they choosing, because some of them may end up not being highly sought out to. So we also have to analyze as to which ones need to be sunsetted as we start bringing in these new courses that are aligning to the workforce. It's an exciting time. It is.
First, I have a question. On the timeline, there's a TOA committee. What does TOA stand for?
Oh, that is our theory of action team. So it's a smaller group of chiefs and also including in our workforce development team members.
Okay, thanks. I got to tell you that I have been on social media in person telling people how wonderful this education planning guide is. And I am going to just add one more stakeholder group that you may not have thought about, but I can tell you that the Spring ISD taxpayers are very, very interested in these career pathways that our students have access to. I'm not sure how we disseminate that information. The parents are coming in, helping plan their students' educational program. But I can tell you that sometimes in conversations I hear, well, it's too bad they pulled this, this, and this. And I went, they didn't. It's right there in the education planning guide and shows the schools that offer that those courses in that pathway. So just that this is a wonderful service to our community as well as our students. So thank you very much.
I want to piggyback a little bit on Dr. Jensen's comment, because there's an opportunity for better awareness. I think is what she's speaking to. And I know I've seen it all over our website and social media. It's even popped up on my Twitter stream, and so I know we're making a large effort, but maybe we can consider or think about how we can expand what we're currently doing. Because this is amazing, but a lot of parents will say we don't have this when we have something that's excellent.
Do you want to add anything about the communications strategy that goes with this?
Well, I think for the EPG outlined is a great way for outreach, but to the point is we do a lot of pushing on our CTE. So our back to school guide, if you notice, every year we include a pretty good coverage of our CTE, our primary offerings, which goes to all households. But we will continually to do that, continue to do that to push out our CTE, because as Dr. Jensen and Trustee Durant were noting, I think it's one of our highlights of our district. So we will definitely look for ways. We have been talking as a group, and I know Dr. Watson is aware. So when we push out on social media, I think it's always important. People that follow us on social media get to see the information that we push out on social media. So we've actually been doing some experimentation with doing what is called paid marketing on social media. So that's people in our geographic area in the zip codes that make up the district. It would actually appear on their walls in social media, and particularly things like our CTE programming and those rich offerings that we have is using that because people that are not currently following us on social media would start to see some of those posts as well, because our channels are the people that follow us, and we like to think that our households open up that back to school guide when they get it. But that's where we really want to go our next phase, because we want to capture those people that maybe are sitting within our district. Maybe they're not currently in our district, but getting and seeing some of the programs, whether they have a student or they know of a student in their neighborhood, would share that information with them. So that's where we're experimenting. We've done some experimentation on that. We did some with Springwoods Village. I don't know if you guys know, but we did do some geo-targeted marketing. You basically using the great information about Springwoods Village opening. And what we did is we did some marketing with Facebook so that they were actually people within our zip codes around that area were seeing it on their Facebook feed, whether they followed us or not. So that's some of the stuff that we're doing to get that information out, because we do push it every which way, but the people that follow us already follow us and a lot of times know about the programs, and we really want to get that information in front of people who may not follow us or may not know about the wonderful programs we have.
I just want to voice my support for this paid social media campaign. I'm seeing advertisements from charter schools, and I think I'm getting caught in that because of my geographic location. I think we need to also be advertising in those same spaces, because in many instances, when I do a side-to-side comparison with what charter schools are offering and what we're offering, we're winning hands down, but we're not marketing as effectively. So.
Another thing
Will we
is,
have an opportunity to see what you will be sharing? Because as he said, we know so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. We can actually, some of the plans that we have to share on social media, we're still at a place where I think for school districts, I think it's important. We actually, Ms. Westbrooks and I, attended an informational meeting at Sci-Fair that we were they were very gracious to invite us to, that was talking, but charter schools and the way they're funded too, and the way they have money for marketing differs from public schools. And so we are very, I would say, we have been conservative because it is general funds that we're using for marketing, which for a lot of public schools, we just haven't been geared up in our budget. So as we do, we will definitely share. For my team, we've actually been looking, I think CTE and the programming around CTE is one of the best things that we want to share on the targeted paid marketing on social media, because I think it's those programs and highlighting those programs. But we can definitely share a calendar for the following year on some key things that we'll be sharing via the social media. Right now, our budget is small. We use the majority of that for our back to school, which we love to do that and for people to see. And if you saw, we had a very advertising, a very kind of brochure look to our back to school guide that we thought would garner more interest than we kept the copy a little bit lighter on it, if you saw. So a lot of people see something that's really copy heavy, and that's probably too much for me to read. So even in that approach, we're trying to take approach that's more general interest. So when somebody sees that, they're going to want to open it up and glance, even if they only catch a couple of the real, headlines within the brochure. We want them to catch those, and that's why we covered CTE in that. But we can definitely share with you, and I think we'll be working and having more discussions as a cabinet on kind of moving the way we budget too, so that we can do more paid social media marketing.
Okay. I know we have a couple of charter schools coming up in our neighborhood. TC Jestard over in Cranbrook
Right at the
area
corner of my street.
coming up. I'd like to let you know that my church in particular, and I imagine others do take advertisement with no charge to the district. They will run a short video because charter schools are coming in, and they do it during the announcement time, just a little 30-second blip that they will show to the community.
That's a wonderful
And
idea.
this is early enough season that we're getting it in before them. So if we could put together something like that, that
And even
will
the
cost.
HOA websites,
Mhm.
the HOA websites.
I noticed that I usually access the EPG online. I will tell you, even though I have a hard copy, it just, I don't know, it seems to be the easiest search for me. And also I noticed that now you have, are these UPC codes or, okay. Do we make sure that parents have access to computers if they don't have them at home so that they can look at this as well?
Absolutely, and one of the great things is that our schools do have, you walk into, the first one that's so much fun to go to is Burchett. All of our newer schools have a parent room right up at the front, and we have computers there. So we need to make sure that the parents, if they don't have access at home or, they don't have a smartphone, that we do have computers available with scanners for them to be able to scan and upload. All the high schools, and especially our newer schools, will have libraries right up at the front. So as parents are visiting, they can come into our library and have access to the technology.
Unfortunately, Spring High School is not in that category.
But think about our 9th grade center.
Yes,
Yeah. So we're working
Okay,
little by
good.
little. We're going to get there.
good.
And I know we're all happy to see the AVID program. We're
Yes.
very familiar with that program. And the Spring Leadership Academy students were just beautiful yesterday at the dedication. They looked real good. I'm
I
impressed.
got one last question. Do we have an external communication plan?
Tiffany, you want to take that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we have a external communication plan with all of our events and leveraging and all of the different things that we support throughout the year. But if the Board of Trustees would like us to see us develop a calendar type of plan, we're definitely open to doing that. We do a message platform every year that guides the work of my team based on key initiatives that are coming out every year through the different departments that support the district. But if they would like us to develop that, we're happy to do that as well.
I think that would be fantastic.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Bradford, do you want to continue with your next
Sure.
item? Thank you.
So, good evening again, and tonight I'm going to share an update of our curriculum, which is currently housed in Schoology. As you know, the board did pass and approve our RFP last January for us to adopt Schoology. This is in the dark blue folder, and it's the curriculum and instruction update. Our work around curriculum does focus in providing a curriculum that allows teachers to reach every student. And what's very exciting is I want to just highlight the ease and accessibility of our Spring ISD curriculum. So every teacher has access, every staff member actually has access to the my.springisd portal. And so from there, a teacher would just click on the icon that's titled Schoology. So clicking on the icon Schoology then takes us into the curriculum, which we are calling the Curriculum Innovation Lab. So teachers then log into the Curriculum Innovation Lab. Once they're in that system, all staff are enrolled in this group, which serves as the main site for all of our curriculum documents and the management of them. So there are levels of curriculum, starting with pre-K through high school. Once you click on that, go into the Curriculum Innovation Lab, as well as additional resources for teacher teams to utilize for things like lesson design or participation in the PLCs. So it's organized really well, and teachers can identify, okay, I'm a middle school teacher, I'm gonna go to the middle school curriculum area. Once inside their level, teachers can then select their content area. So they can then go, if they're art teacher, music teacher, they'll select their content area. And this example right here, once they've selected, is from elementary math, and it's the landing page that they would see. So in addition to the language options for that curriculum, there is a link to the eSuccess Academies. And I just want to highlight that for a minute. These are our new virtual professional learning sessions, which are hosted monthly, to give teachers a preview of the upcoming curriculum. So they're very similar to a live webinar. So teachers log in at a specific time after school, and a member of the curriculum team then guides them through their upcoming unit, assessments, activities, and resources.
How
These
long are they?
sessions, sorry?
How long are they?
About 90 minutes. And these sessions are recorded and then uploaded and linked here, so teachers can refer back to these for just-in-time curriculum support. So each month we have it, and then we post the link right there. So if a teacher can't attend during that time, they can go back and see it at any time. So we prepare about 45 to 60 minutes worth of content and then allow time for questions from teacher teams. Once inside the folder, you'll see that there are additional documents. So our primary documents are a year at a glance, a scope and sequence, a curriculum map, and then you'll also see where we're putting the arrow to the unit guide, because that's where the majority of teachers spend their time within the curriculum. The unit guides then break down every unit. So looking at the next example, once you click on unit guide, each grade level has several units that will be taught throughout the school year based on important concepts. So then, and they're also sequential. So then a teacher would go from unit 1 to unit 2 to unit 3 throughout the course of the school year. This is an example of the structure of our unit guide, ensuring that all of our units and curriculum are tightly aligned to state standards. As you can see, this is an example from a current middle school science unit. So we have just, the name of the unit, the time frame, the title, the big ideas, and then those TEKS. And so the TEKS are our state standards that we align all of our curriculum work to. And then also our ELPS, which is our English Language Proficiency Standards, which support all of our students who speak or are learning a second language, all of our English language learners. These are some other screenshots of a unit guide. So our unit guides also offer assessment options, activities, and live links. That's the great thing about being in this learning management system is all of the links are live, so teachers can click right there to have links to resources, including all of our online adopted resources and materials. Textbooks are linked right there. Some specifically that I want to highlight are we do have our access to NBC Learn. Thank you very much to the board who did approve and adopt that. So with this new digital resource, it's very easily embedded into the site. So you can see it's going to be right over there on the left-hand side. When teachers log in, they have access to that, and then the whole video library shows up for them. So it's easily accessible. It's just like searching any other website. So we have gone ahead and linked that in there, and teachers are utilizing it. I also want to highlight that we have access to our Jason's Learning, which is our ongoing science and STEM resources through our partnership with Jason's Learning and Chevron. So within Schoology, we're embedding these live links so teachers can go directly to specific activities that are aligned to their curriculum, their other resources, and the lessons that are being taught. So all of our Jason's Learning access is housed right here within the unit guides, and teachers would just click under additional resources, and that link is there for them. So we can embed specific activities that we either want students or teachers to engage in. And then, very exciting is brand new, hot off the press, is now we also have the opportunity to provide online professional development within Schoology. And so we are just launching our first course right now, and you'll see that it's there. It's Reading 101. And so when teachers click there in the professional development area, it then takes them to this first course. So it's a great new option for teachers to learn anywhere in this newly created Reading 101 course, which focuses on foundational literacy, which we know that is a focus across the district with our literacy plans. So teachers log in, they can complete the professional learning anywhere. So it's an exciting opportunity. They can do PD in their PJs or just at home in the convenience at nights, weekends, early mornings. And so this course was designed as a collaborative effort between workforce development and the curriculum team members. So this is new, and teachers can go in, receive credit. They can go back to the modules. They can watch the videos again. So Schoology gives us a great opportunity to combine our curriculum resources as well as professional development.
Can the courses be assigned?
A course can, yes, it definitely can be assigned. So then, we have access to then, when a teacher logs in, they would then see that course pop up on their course list. And so moving forward, our next steps is now that we have professional learning, we're going to get deeper into that. In the fall, we will then be able to assign courses to students so that students could also log in and have access to some of their lessons, resources, assessments, and activities. That's our next phase. And so we're really excited just to be bringing everything together and really have it be much more easily accessible and manageable for our teachers. This slide actually is an example of some of the different groups. So we have our main curriculum group, but teachers are going in also and creating their own groups and forming these collaboratives where they're sharing resources, they're designing things across campuses. So it gives a lot of opportunity also for cross-campus collaboration without leaving their building. And with that being said, that ends my presentation. Do you all have any questions for me about our curriculum update?
I'm wondering about the learning curve for the teachers on the campuses. What is implementation looking like? What are the challenges you've encountered as you rolled this out in June?
So one of the great things about it is we spent last spring really redesigning the curriculum and doing all the behind-the-scenes work so that when school got out, teachers were able to actually have access to their curriculum and begin planning for the upcoming year. It wasn't that we waited until August and then surprised them with it. So over the summer, we offered the opportunity for teachers to swap out professional development days and attend a 2-day summer training. So then when they came back to school in the fall, they would then have 2 days to work in their classrooms without having to go to any training or anything else. And a good majority of our teachers took advantage of that and came. We offered them every week those 2-day sessions. So a lot of teachers came to those sessions to get well prepared. We also trained our principals at their summer institute last year. And so for ongoing support, we've been working with our instructional coaches on Fridays to give them more of the tips and tricks and resources so that they can take those back to their campuses. We also have a teacher position that receives a little bit of additional funding on their campus to do additional work, and it's the Campus Instructional and Technology Specialist. And so their job is to then become advanced learners in Schoology and then provide like hands-on, you need help, let me show you how to log in. So they really are, the Campus Instructional Technology is our main contact to help teachers with Schoology. Teachers are also working in PLCs, as you all know, this year, so that means they come together as a collaborative team. And so within that team, someone can log in and project, and they can look at the resources together. So that also helps provide that partnership. So we really feel like, we're getting more and more into it at the high school level. A lot of high school teachers have already started creating their own courses. So a biology teacher can take it, create their own biology course by pulling our curriculum and then adding their own resources. So I feel like we're at a good start, checking in on teachers, helping them, providing ongoing professional development. We also look at it during our professional development days when we have our teachers. We are always going back and referring to it, having them log in. So I think we're at a good place for mid-year.
Could you compare Schoology to Eduphoria? Because this
No.
seems so far more connected and intuitive
Yes.
than when I tried to get into Eduphoria and look at curriculum. And I just can't believe all the embedded links you have throughout. Are you
It's
going to get
much
rid of
more
Eduphoria
dynamic.
now?
No, Eduphoria really works well for all of our assessment data. It's a great data warehouse. Also, our state data from TEA, our STAR, and our EOC data uploads. I mean, it's sent directly to Eduphoria, so it's housed really well there. We can run reports very easily from Eduphoria. So from that piece, there are apples and oranges.
Okay.
But as far as a learning management system, Schoology by far is well more advanced, and just the ease and accessibility and also options for future use with professional development, with students in courses, and also with some parent communication options.
I've seen some teachers are very interested in having students take their tests online, and I thought they were going to use Schoology.
They
Is
will
that-
be able to use Schoology,
Okay.
definitely, yes. So right now, we have the curriculum, professional learning. Our next step is really to create those courses where students are then logging into Schoology, and then they would have access to take their unit tests or just a weekly quiz online.
I do want to go back to.
Does Schoology provide any data around users' access, time spent in it, any kind of reporting that you receive?
Yes, so we actually, with our technology team, do have the ability to pull and see who's logging in, how often are they logging in. One of the great resources for our team in curriculum is which documents are they going to, so we really know what's most useful for teachers, so we can support more of those type of documents. We also will be able to look at and pull on within, so let's say they're looking at the unit guide, what are they looking at in the unit guide? So are they clicking on the tests more? Are they going to Jason's Learning more? So it really does give us more evidence of what teachers are really interested around curriculum.
And Winfred, to your point, that's one of the things we're looking at. So we had a conversation one morning in cabinet about the usage. And so when we go into the classrooms, we see teachers actually teaching because they have their board configurations up and are actually teaching the curriculum. But we also had conversations about, some teachers have gone on and they printed off everything to put into their binder. Well, she's also talked about there's live links in there. So when you print them off and put them in your binder, you don't have access to the live links. And so even though everything's there and people are using it, we are still working on making sure that teachers are comfortable with that and that they could use it as a tool to plan and not printing it off and traditionally putting it in your binder so then you can take your binder with you, that it's alive and well there on the site.
I think for me, it would be useful as we work as a board in our monitoring capacity to have that kind of information in your updates. I am frustrated by feeling sort of surprised at the end of the year. And if there was more of a connection between what we see our teachers doing in their growth and development, that would help us as we move through the year be able to better anticipate how the kids are going to do. So that's what I just want to see more data about, like how teachers are logging in, how they're implementing, how they're using the resources we're providing, so that I can see that there's a correlation between the resources and the effort we're putting in and the outcome we get at the end.
Absolutely. And you want to talk a little bit about the project I have you and Dr. Cobb working on for next year, meaning February, March? Looking at the resources, it's the constraint.
Oh, yes, okay, sorry. No, we're working on pulling together a way that we can track how that our campuses, so for example, when the targeted improvement plans are brought to the board, they're always brought with detail. And it says, these are the resources we're going to use and we expect to get this outcome. And so what Dr. Cobb and I are working on together is how can we actually measure that usage and whether or not the outcomes are coming to fruition. So it's starting off with the survey. Number one, have you purchased it? And then number two, have you begun using it? And then provide evidence of how it's being used, and then also evidence of whether or not that use is yielding the results that we anticipated yielding. And so what that gives us the opportunity to intervene early. So number one, you said you were purchasing it. If you haven't purchased it yet, let's get that ball rolling. And then number two, how you said you were planning to use it. If that usage isn't happening, then do we need to change directions? It gives us the information and that detail that we need early on so that we can make decisions throughout the process, as opposed to like what Trustee Adams said, which is having a surprise at the end of the year because maybe it's not yielding the results that we anticipated.
That's exciting because that gives us more of an agile environment and able to make those incremental changes as we go along. We just invested in the NBC Link and the Jason's learning.
Yes.
What is that ROI?
Sorry.
And do we see after 2 months, teachers aren't going there? Let's find out why. The ones that are using it, how successful is it, and what are the benefits that they're reaping that they can share with their peers? So if we're monitoring it as it goes along, we can either steer them towards what we know is successful, and then we know where we need to sunset things.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Bring that.
Thank you, Ms. Bradford. For our next item, I'd like to recognize our Chief of School Leadership and Student Support Services, Dr. Lapita Hinojosa.
Thank you, Ms. Newhouse. Members of the board, Dr. Watson, thank you for the opportunity to provide you with an update regarding Lift 6. As you know, this is Spring ISD transformation plan for our 6 comprehensive middle schools. And so just a quick reminder of how we got here and where we are at. Our phase 1 actually started last year as our superintendent conducted the middle school tours and spoke to parents, spoke to community members, spoke to teachers and our principals. As a result of that, we've already taken some action. Phase 2, we expanded our opportunities and choices for our families. We've opened Springwoods Village Middle School with the IB program and a brand new Robertson, as well as Spring Leadership Academy. And like Ms. Newhouse said, I think all of us were beaming when we saw the LOTC program there. And that's, you know, part of the vision that you all gave us and that the community gave us when we set to open this new program. So we're very excited. Now we are implementing phase 3. Phase 3 is the implementation of this transformation plan for our comprehensive middle schools, and specifically focusing on tenets that are research-based that we know have proven to show student improvement. And then phase 4 will come in next year, the further expansion of the opportunities and choices, specifically around our middle schools. And so just a quick reminder, the middle school has 6 tenets for our 6 comprehensive middle schools, Bammel, Bailey, Clawton, Twin Creeks. Of course, as you're looking at me, I'm like, oh my goodness. Count them all, you know, rattle them all, right? Wells, and who did I live out? Do it. There, and see, maybe I was going alphabetical order, but those are 6 comprehensive middle schools with the 6 tenets. A culture of high expectations, effective principals and teachers in every campus, maximize that time that we are with our students, that learning piece, the data-driven instruction, the high dosage of tutoring with our kids directly around math and reading, and then, of course, the safe and secure learning environment. And these are the foundations that we believe will transform our schools. And so tonight, we have our 2 assistant superintendents that work directly with our LIFT 6 that are going to walk us through the process and provide our board, provide us with an update. This time, Dr. Perez.
Good afternoon, Board, Madam President, Ted Watt, Cabinet. So part of, I'm trying to make sure I don't kick the cable here so we don't make sure that the presentation goes away. So part of the update that I'm going to be providing you this afternoon, this evening, revolves around where we're at within the LIFT 6 middle schools. And so as we all know, the 6 comprehensive middle schools are being driven right now with a plan called the LIFT 6. And so this LIFT 6 plan is very aggressive, comprehensive, and rigorous. And so we do have 6 tenets that drive a lot of the work that's happening at the campus level. And each of the tenets has expectations, and they also have targets. And so before I start providing you with an update, I want to kind of just bring your attention to the slide or to the presentation that's in front of you. The box that's in the gray color, those are the expectations. The box with the blue color, those are the targets. And so what's in bold, for example, at the top, on the top right-hand corner, that's the actual update that you will be providing, that I will be providing you with tonight, okay? And so those are the actual targets. So to start off with, as it relates to 100% of the parents have an assigned school parent contract, we are almost there. We are sitting at 90%, and we are happy to report that the key behind the compacts is making sure that parents continue to be committed they continue to help their scholars at home. They continue to come to school. They continue to be more involved in the middle school years. As you all know, there's a drop across the nation, right? Parents are very involved at the elementary years, and then something happens in middle school that all of a sudden they're not as involved and engaged. And so part of the compact helps us to form a binding commitment with the parents, right? We also have a compact and commitment that the staff, all of us signed, because we have to commit to certain behaviors and certain different strategies. Secondly, as it relates to attendance, currently we are sitting at 94%. And about 2 weeks ago during our zone meeting, the principals are working very hard to create strategies and create an action plan so that we can continue to work to develop a plan to increase the attendance. And just to provide an example, we've all have received a phone call from the Blackboard communication tool, right? And so what we're going to be using is we're going to be restructuring the Blackboard tool so that our ADA for middle schools is at 10 o'clock in the morning, right? And right now, currently, when the scholars are absent, the parent gets a phone call at 10 o'clock, but at that time, which is the official state time, it is too late for the parent to bring the child, right? And so as it relates to the state, we're counted absent. And so what we're trying to do is be more strategic and more intentional. And so part of that work involves having the phone call go out in first period, right? And so middle school classes begin at 8:55. And so part of what we want to do is have the phone call be sent to parents with a very nice welcoming message that says, hey, we missed you, et cetera, et cetera. And so that it serves as a reminder to the parents, but also to the students. And so we hope to have this scheduled and go off around 9:15, so that in turn the student and the parents, they have 45 minutes to get to school. Because as you know, sometimes as we're driving around, we see the scholars at the gas station shopping, and so we want to make sure that we're continuing to informing them about some of the pieces that they have to commit to and come to school on time. And I'm going to bring your attention to the next three bullets, which is 80%, 100%, and 100% of scholars. If you can see, it's a very aggressive plan, right? And so right now, currently, it says 80% of parents rate their school good or excellent. And overall, right now, we don't have that data because we do have a survey that's coming up in January. And so we'll be providing updates as we have different data pieces. And that holds true for the next two bullets as well, because we don't have STAR yet. And so as we progress throughout the year, you will be receiving updates in the near future. So as it relates to Tenet 2, I am very happy to inform you that during the summer, we've talked about having some different trainings with workforce development. And we have 100% of our teachers, principals, assistant principals, and associate principals, including all of us here sitting in this room, have been trained. Administration, principals, we were trained on what's called a boot camp on the Springway systems and routines. And so our teachers were trained, as was mentioned earlier, on a 2-day, either during the summer or at the beginning of the school year, right? Teachers were given a choice. And so all the teachers were trained. They were trained on Schoology, curriculum, and Springway systems. So it is very, very, very important that everyone who comes into the school system, whether you're new to teaching, whether you have experience in other districts, you come to learn the Springway, okay? And so we have been working very hard to create that standard. And when you go visit campuses, you are seeing these practices being replicated from campus to campus. Now, of course, these practices are, because we are working with people, there are different levels, right? And so part of the work is to continue to coach and to continue to improve. As it relates to the next three bullets there, what you see there is that the 50 hours, we don't have all the information yet because as the year goes along, we're providing PD either at the campus level or at the district level. And so as we're aggregating all this information, we'll be providing updates to you as well. I can tell you that we do have 100% of our staff, the actual heroes that are sitting out here, the principals, they are vested and committed. And so I can tell you that. However, TPAS and T-test, all of that happens at the end of the year. So you will be receiving more information in the very near future. And so as it relates to tenet number 3, I am happy to inform you, and all this is connected with the current update as it relates to the EPG guide, right? And so last year in middle school, students were in class for 45 minutes, 8 periods. This year, we're happy to inform you that they're provided an additional 10 minutes of instruction. So we have 7 periods, and they have teaching and learning going on for 55 minutes. And so that provides additional, it lengthens the class period for the student and allows for more questioning, and allows for more teaching and learning as well. In addition to that, we do have some targeted reading and math support that is happening at the comprehensive Live 6 middle schools. And we do have at all of the comprehensive middle schools a reading and a math interventionist. This person works with scholars in smaller groups to make sure that we're closing the opportunity gap, right? And I'm calling it an opportunity gap, not an achievement gap, because our scholars are more than capable to achieve. So it's a matter of creating those opportunities and being able to reinforce through positive behaviors and energizing our scholars to make sure that they continue to believe in themselves, right? And so in doing so, they're working in smaller groups with the students. And if you were to walk into a middle school math intervention class, what you will see is we have some math fellows, right? So you have an interventionist teacher working with 3 math fellows, and I'm gonna paint this picture, right? So just kind of follow with me. So imagine walking into an elementary where you have a teacher working in small groups and centers, and you have that kidney table, right? Remember the small little tables with the small little chairs? So we have that in the math classroom. So you might be asking yourself, well, why do we have that, right? So we have that because we want the scholars working with an adult in smaller groups, right? So the groups of students are no more than 6 students. And so in doing so, we've also added Pearson Success, which is part of the adoption. And so we've added Pearson Success, which we'll use as a rotation. So students get to work with the teacher, and then they get to be rotated with Pearson Success, which is a great adaptive intervention program, right? And so it adapts to the student's instructional level, and that's one more tool that we can use to monitor their progress as well. And finally, what we're going to have, and my partner Pam will be kind of talking more about this, and some of the other opportunities that we have for the scholars as well as it relates to targeting the support. And before I call Pam to continue and take over, I do want to kind of leave you with this kind of little story, because these little things kind of make all this worth it in the end, right? So I was walking to a middle school campus, and so walking in, someone was walking out, right? And so this parent by the name of Blanca, little did I know that she was not from Spring, right? So Blanca is from South Texas, and Blanca and her kids were attending a charter over there. They're very big over there. And so she said, "Oh, are you Miguel?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Miguel. How do you know? You know, what's your name?" And so interestingly enough, the team created a video about the scholar-led conferences. And so she had watched the video and she recognized me. And so we talked and everything. And so what was most powerful about that conversation was the fact that at first, from her experience, she wasn't trusting in her ability for public school system to provide a good education to her son, right? And so in having given us an opportunity, she has had a great year, right? And so her son is enjoying it. She is loving it. And then she actually told me that her son goes home and works with, has little brothers, right? And raises a hand and says, "I need your help." And so it's a testament to kind of what we're doing throughout, and those little experiences kind of make all this worth it, right? And it brings about all of the late nights, all of the hard work that the people sitting here are putting into the table are coming to fruition, because a lot of times there's a lot of negative pieces, but then we don't hear enough the positive stories, which really make all this come to light. And so anyways, I wanted to kind of leave you with that little bit of a story, because it really impacted me and really energizes me, right? And continuing to do this very meaningful work and have the opportunity to continue to do this work. And as we all know, the process of turning around schools is very challenging. And so it does take a process, right? It does take a process, and steady growth like we're having will help us to get there. But it is like climbing a 100-foot skyscraper, right? We have to go one step at a time. And that's what we're continuing to do right now. We're moving forward, we're moving upward, and we're climbing and stepping one step at a time. Okay? So at this time, I'm going to let Pam continue with the presentation.
Good evening, President Newhouse, Dr. Watson, trustees. I have the pleasure of updating you on, tenets 4 through 6. Tenet 4 is data-driven instruction, and our outcomes for this tenet are to conduct student data conferences at least once per 6-week period, and to have 100% of Springway data-driven action planning, implementation of data-driven action planning. On November the 5th, during the district-wide Parent Engagement Day, more than 500 student-led data conferences were held with parents across the Lift 6 schools. The campuses continued the data conferences through November the 19th, bringing the total number of student-led data conferences to more than 1,100. We plan to duplicate that effort March the 2nd through the 5th in hopes of having even more parents come and participate in those conferences, which our scholars lead. They share information about growth and strength areas. As for the second bullet, all campuses are implementing data-driven action planning conferences. I'm actually going to share a video with you. It's about 1 minute and 45 seconds. If you'll forgive me for the quality of the video, but this video in particular highlights a really high leverage light bulb moment that you'll see a teacher experience in this session. And that's a snippet of a data-driven action conference. They last anywhere between 10 to 40 minutes. But if you walk into any of the Lift 6 campuses and join a PLC during a DDAP meeting, what you're going to do is see teachers actually walking through the process of diving into their data while looking at student work, which is something that historically our teachers have not been doing. Normally we come into a meeting and everyone says, well, how did you do? Well, how did your kids do? Well, what did you use? Oh, I may use that when I go back. During these meetings, we're actually pinpointing what scholars understand, even when they get some things wrong. And for the problems where they've messed up, where they really don't have an understanding, what we need to do differently in terms of our practices as educators to make sure that scholars are learning. For Tenet 5, high dosage tutoring, we expect that 100% of identified students will have schedules that allow them to get the help they need during and after school. As of mid-November, more than 750 students were receiving tutorials across the Lift 6 middle schools. Now that we've implemented the DDAP conferences, those tutorials are actually TEKS targeted. We are also sharing tutorial foci with our 21st century partners to ensure that their tutorials are also TEKS targeted. And last but not least, we know that on our listening tour, student safety and school safety was a big reoccurring theme. And so I'm very proud to stand before you and say that we've actually hit all of our outcomes for this particular tenet. Every target has been met for Tenet 6. One impact of meeting the first two targets has been a reduction in disciplinary incidents in the Lift 6 schools. And for example, from October 2018 to October 2019, we've seen a significant reduction in incidents. Out of school suspensions in 2018 were 439. This October, we documented 283. In-school suspensions decreased from 778 to 408 in-school suspensions. We know we still have a lot of work to do, but those are significant declines. All campuses are also conducting the student-led safety committee meetings, and those are helping us. It's helping to inform principals and administrators what other things need to happen on the campus so that scholars themselves feel safe when they enter the building. And last but not least, all of the schools are implementing restorative practices. So that concludes the presentation, and I'd like to invite Dr. Perez up in case you all have any questions.
I have some questions.
Yes, Dr. Jensen.
Okay. One is about on Tenet 2, effective principals and teachers in every school. The second bullet says that there'll be district-wide professional development and completion of an additional 50 hours. Do we have a timeline for that? Because that's a lot of professional development.
Actually, there is a state timeline. I believe it starts in the summer, the end date. Dr. Hinojosa, I'll let you jump.
Yes, so there is a state requirement, and because part of their original set of professional development is part of their teacher appraisal, as you know, and so we do have a deadline of having it completed by April, but it actually starts at the beginning of the summer and they go throughout the entire year. So part of the state requirement is already completed through our professional development days. And then we're doing the 50 hours through either online or through our PLCs, through Saturdays, working with our teachers.
You're answering the questions I was going to ask. I'm glad to hear that there's an online option. And you're saying the PLCs also qualify?
Well, they conduct, and I'll let the assistant soups talk about this, but they do conduct PLCs out of the school hours, so after school and on Saturdays, to come together and create their lessons together.
And I would like to just applaud, I know we have a couple of the principals that are here. They've been working collaboratively and have inspired and motivated teachers to show up on Saturdays to actually do a lot of the heavy lifting that we just don't have enough time to do Monday through Friday. But teachers are there. If you check out Twitter, we're constantly tweeting about the fact that they show up on Saturdays for hours at a time to build assessments, to work for their planning PLCs. They're getting a lot of work done during that additional time.
Got another question, and that's on the Tenet 3, maximize learning time. Just very excited about having these intervention groups because having observed many classes over the years, it would break my heart to see a student who was about to get it and suddenly they were out of time and everybody got rushed. And I thought, you know, if just that student had another 15 minutes. And but you don't want to hold up the whole class sometimes if you're trying to do whole group things. So the small group stuff is just wonderful. I really am a believer in manipulatives for math education at the middle school level. And I just wondered if Pearson includes that. No.
So
No.
Pearson, and if you'll recall, I'm going to pitch it over to Ms. Bradford, but remember we did put together the resource list that we brought for
Yes.
you, not only our science and our math. So we are really building that up because our math adoption was adopted a few years back. So anything that came with it, as the years progress, as you know, those things get lost. But we do have an investment and a plan to purchase and bring our math classrooms and our science classrooms up to speed.
Okay, sometimes it's even homemade items that
Yes.
is important. I am not a math expert. I have taught math only because somebody was so desperate they hired me, okay? But I will tell you that when I got into professional development with real math instructional experts, I will tell you a frequent comment with our teachers in our workshops were, if I had learned math this way, I might have been a math major. You know, they were so excited about it, and it was in middle school a lot of times, or upper elementary. So I just can't stress enough. I think that everybody thinks you go from the concrete to the abstract, but I can tell you at my time of life, I still like to learn with manipulatives sometimes. And I can be as abstract thinker as you need, but really, it's very effective for me to have manipulatives. So anyway, I'm just urging everybody think that way. Okay, thank you.
On that particular one, on lipsticks, tenant 3, you mentioned fellows.
Math fellows.
Oh, okay. Just want to hear a little more about.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so the math fellows are individuals that are helping us, helping the scholars with small targeted instruction for in the area of mathematics only.
These are individuals that, through the use of the Title Fund or state comp ed funds, they're full-time people that are there. They have degrees, and a lot of them may have been people that have had degrees in math but not certified, but they're there working with the students, and they're reteaching the content that they learned in the classroom,
Right.
maybe in a different way, in a smaller group.
One more question. On tenant 4, the data-driven instruction, sometimes I have seen people criticize this, but I will tell you that I've also seen many teachers teaching, and they think all the kids have got it because they're not making trouble or whatever. And then it comes test time and they go, oh my goodness, why are they doing so poorly? And I just love that you are finding out which questions they're missing and why they're missing it, and make teachers really look at what students are actually learning, understanding, doing. So thank you for that, tenant.
Thank
The only other thing that I'll mention, I think we talked about it in governance around priorities that we'll be working on, is one of the things that we've noted, to adjusting your comment and Winford's comment, is that because teachers are doing more planning, they're coming on a Saturday or in the evening. One of the things we're looking at is just looking at the type of master schedule that we have, and maybe looking at block scheduling that gives, or a modified block that gives teachers more time to plan, but also more time to teach now that they're so focused in it. And so we're experimenting with those things, maybe to come back with a recommendation during the budget process as to what we look at, especially since there's a greater focus on instruction and the planning.
This is all really good information. I just had one question on the 2-day Springway training you talked about under tenant. Everyone's taking that.
Yes.
What do we do when we have someone that has not completed it?
So we can work with workforce development, and they will offer the training. I'm also one of the trainers. I'll put on the trainings at the campuses myself also.
Can you remind me, how many students are we talking about in these 6 schools?
I don't want to give you a wrong number, Dr. Hinojosa.
I'm good with
Yes.
a ballpark, because I'm wondering about the 1,100 conferences that we completed. So how many would be?
Probably about
I would say
40, yeah, probably about 4,800, 48 to about
Jennifer's
5,000.
looking. The data person always has it. What's the number, Jennifer?
I was-
I said, yeah, 4,800.
yes.
So we're at about 20% for the conferences at this point in the year.
Right, and so on November 5th, it's one day out of the year, and we know that many of our parents work and have commitments. And so it was good to have 500 show up for that particular day, which is why we decided, let's extend that time. Let's make it convenient for parents until November the 19th. And to get twice as many people, 1,100 parents, to show up during that time frame, we had parents that were willing to hear. Part of the draw was to actually, the invitation was the fact that your child is leaving this conference. It's not a teacher talking to you about all of the issues or all of the concerns. This was an opportunity for scholars to say, this is where I'm being successful, here's where I'm still struggling. And then for all 3 of the parties, the teacher, the parent, and the student, to sit together and make the action plan about what do I do to get better at home, what do I do to get better at school.
I'm sensing another data opportunity.
Yes, yes.
to track how those students do moving forward, and
Versus those that don't.
so yeah.
For the, we can definitely create some type of track.
Yeah.
So not to completely derail us, but I know on election day, I worked out in the parking lot at Booker, and parents were coming in droves, and they had their kids with them because they had the parent conferences that day.
Yeah.
Was that what was going on? And they didn't want to talk to me. They were like, I got to get to my conference.
Right.
And they all had their kids with them, and they were excited, and they came out, and they were flipping through their paperwork they left with. And I thought, okay, well, this is really engaging. And
So yes,
I was
ma'am.
You were
excited to see.
speaking only of middle school, though, right?
Yeah, that's why I said not to derail us too much.
Everyone had conferences
Right,
that
right,
day.
everyone that day, but
My numbers are specifically
particularly
for middle school.
And so if we had half the excitement at the middle schools I saw over at Booker,
It was exciting.
I think 20% is really, for a beginning, a very good start.
Well, we're going again in the spring, right?
Yes.
So we
March
have a number
the
of.
second through, it's actually gonna be a week. Again, the more opportunities we revolve around parent schedules, instead of dictating, you have to show up on this day at this time, they get to elect their time, and we're giving them that week.
And then just to kind of add and maybe conclude, this is something that's typically done in elementary, right? Elementary parents are typically used to this. Across the state, right, you don't see a lot of middle schools doing this. And then
Right.
especially the piece that becomes a little bit frightening, right, is the scholar-led piece. And so also with the middle school point from a standpoint of time, right, we had to kind of block them within a 15 to 12-minute window because the day is not long enough. And so this second go round we should be able to capture because we're lengthening the time frame for that rather than a single day. We're providing more choice and opportunity for our working parents so that way they have the opportunity to come and choose a different slot.
Yeah, I think
And
it's,
it's a good way towards building our culture. They're
Yeah.
really excited about that in elementary school, and then to continue it
Right.
That's
into the middle school, it keeps parents engaged, it keeps the kids, I just think it's great.
it's a powerful tool for self-actualizing. I don't know about anybody else here, but I don't remember middle school, right? And
I dreaded it.
I think kids being conscious enough and aware enough of their own learning journey to talk about it with two adults, I just think it's a really powerful moment for brain development and a whole bunch of other things for those students. So I really support this and applaud you for this work.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
You-
So for our next item, I'd like to recognize our Executive Director of School Improvement, Don Oliver.
Good evening, President Newhouse, Dr. Watson, members of the board, Superintendent's Cabinet. I'm delighted tonight to have the opportunity to share with you our Cycle 1 update for our TIPs, Targeted Improvement Plans. As we've mentioned in previous meetings, the ESF framework, the Effective Schools framework, is tightly aligned to our key imperatives here in Spring ISD. As a review, we talked about the last time that there are two accountability systems working in Texas, a state accountability system and a federal accountability system. The state system works in a series of domains. There are three: student achievement, progress, and closing the gaps. And our federal system is built on domain 3, closing the gaps. As a reminder, when we talk about letter grades for campuses and districts, that's under the state system, and we use labels: comprehensive, targeted, and additional targeted in the federal system. This is information that you've seen before, set up in just a different format. What I want to bring to your attention is that these are all of the events that have taken place since the start of since the release of the results from TEA in August through the approval of the targeted improvement plans at the October board meeting. What's new on this slide, and you'll see it throughout, is any event followed by an asterisk is related to the TEA TIP campuses, of which you have copies of those plans in your folders this evening. Those followed by a caret are related to the schools that are not writing TEA TIPs, however, are writing a TIP for local purposes. since our last meeting in October, these are the events and activities that have taken place related to the tips at our schools that are writing TEA tips, the 7, where we were asked to conduct a diagnostic survey of our parents, our students, and our staff. That information will be released to us in January, and it will inform our diagnostic visits by TEA, which will commence in the spring semester. Additionally, TEA has provided us a facilitator who provided feedback on our September submissions by campus, and that information was shared in one-on-one meetings with the campuses who wrote tips submitted to TEA. Additionally, we used that feedback then to provide feedback to the campuses not writing a TEA tip, but who also are writing one for local purposes. So that's where you'll see in the window from the 4th to the 15th that I provided feedback to campuses and support to principals who were updating their tips. Prior to us leaving for Thanksgiving break, on the 22nd, we submitted our tips to TEA for the first cycle, which is what you have in front of you in your folders. Going forward, from the point of submitting to TEA through the next submission at the end of February, at a high level, these are the activities that we're going to be involved in. I, with our development specialist, Ms. Broughton, will be conducting an artifact calibration review. And in that process, what we hope to do is to, 1, make sure our campuses have an alignment of the artifacts that they've collected and the scoring that they've done on cycle 1. And we'll be also able to share with them the feedback from TEA. But secondly, to make sure that they have really tight processes for the second submission in February. Additionally, we're giving our district formative assessments in the month of December, and once those assessments are finished, we'll be collecting, analyzing, and utilizing that data at both the campus and district level to understand how we're doing as it relates to progressing on our milestones and our data goals. Again, as I mentioned, we'll have our diagnostic survey results back in January. We'll have another call with TEA shortly thereafter, and our campuses will have support and feedback on writing their Cycle 2 tip updates, which will be submitted to TEA at the end of February. At this time, I think the highlight of my presentation is having an opportunity for you to hear from some of our principals who are involved in writing tips for TEA. So at this time, I'd like to invite up Principal Dillard from Major Elementary and Principal Green from Eichenroth Elementary. To preface their presentations, you have in front of you a folder of their tips. They're going to speak specifically about their own tips, but you have those from the other 5 campuses who are represented in the audience, but are not part of the presentation this evening. So at this time, I'd like to invite Principal Dillard from Major Elementary.
Thank you. And while they are coming up, let me recognize Trustee Donald Davis has joined us. If he will come and take his seat, please, sir. For a chance, we get to see you in uniform.
Uniform,
How nice.
Special occasions. That was a special occasion.
Yes. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Please continue.
All right, thank you. Good evening, President Newhouse, Dr. Watson, and members of the board. I'm excited to present Major Elementary Cycle 1 Targeted Improvement Plan progress to you on this evening. Before I begin my presentation, you do have a copy of our tip before you. And I want to just go over the layout of how the Cycle 1 90-day outcome, basically how to read this. And so there are 3 sections of Cycle 1, and the first part is at the top, in which we have identified our 3 prioritized focus areas for only the months of September, October, and November. We will do the same thing as we roll into cycle 2, which will occur from December through February, and then cycle 3, March through May, and so on into the summer as we plan for the upcoming school year. But part 1 is where the instructional leadership team, we all got together and we identified those major areas that Major Elementary must focus on in order to reach our level of excellence, or back into our level of excellence. So we've identified 3 essential actions, in which we'll go over shortly, but I'm really going over the format of the document first. We, at the top, you do see the desired annual outcomes, the desired 90-day outcomes, as well as agreements of the barriers in which our team all collaborated on to say, wait a minute, this just might keep us from achieving our goal, so we can plan to surpass those barriers throughout the year. Part 2, if you look below the first portion, it does state action plan milestones. This is where our ILT, our instructional leadership teams, developed clear action steps in order to achieve our overall outcomes, our overall goals. And in this section, they are called milestones. So we looked at milestones, prioritize focus areas. We'll go through that shortly. We looked at resources, artifacts that we must collect, and then at the end of the process, we are to identify where we are in the work, which is our progress and necessary adjustments or carryover steps. The third portion of our cycle 1 90-day outcome is on the 3rd page in brown, is when we slow down and we reflect and plan for the next 90-day cycle. Okay, so there are 3 sections per cycle. And so we're going to start at the top just to talk about some things that Major Elementary has done, our focus areas, our celebrations, and our next steps. So if you go back to page 1 with me, Major Elementary identified 3 focus areas in order to move our campus to success. 1.1, which is developing campus instructional leaders with clear roles and responsibilities. In this area, we're really looking at all of our leaders clear in what they should be doing, the work they should be doing at Major. And we've ensured that they are clear by meeting with each leader one-on-one and rating where the leaders are. And so the artifacts that we've collected for this section is really taking their job responsibilities that human resource gives us, and we then rate our teachers with a plus, check, or minus system to determine whether they are completing their responsibilities. This process has really helped our leaders because they're able to see as the months progress areas that they've done well, and then when the multiple tasks come about, whether they're really truly balancing the work and how to support our leaders so that they can support our teachers and our teachers can support our scholars. The second prioritized area is curriculum and assessments aligned to TEKS with a year-long scope and sequence. In this area, we're really ensuring that our teachers understand how to access our curriculum through Schoology. We also want to ensure that our teachers know the TEKS, how to facilitate instruction to a high level of rigor. And then again, looking at the individualized support that is needed for each teacher. And our final focus area at Major is 5.3, data-driven instruction. And Ms. Farinas and Lift 6, they're doing the same thing that, of course, that we're doing with the data-driven action plans, meeting with those teachers, each teacher ensuring that after every assessment that they are able to target those TEKS, identify misconceptions, look at exemplars, and then plan to take action to ensure students are progressing throughout the year. So that's how that top part is formatted. And then now we're going to go to the second part. Now let's talk about that action plan for Major Elementary. Some of the artifacts, just to name a few, that we're collecting for each area is our PLC agendas. Our PLC agendas, do we have evidence that we're meeting collaboratively with our teams? Are teachers at batting? Do they have opportunities to collaborate with each other and ask those wondering questions about upcoming lessons? And then if there are some additional concerns, we do slow our teachers down and reach out to our CNI department and receive support. And I just want to send out a shout out here. Recently, we did, have our fourth grade teachers invite some of our CNI guests from the curriculum and instruction department, and they came over and sat in on our DDAPs. And from there, Miss Stacy Parker and I forgot her other name, but Miss Stacy Parker did sit in and identify and target those TEKs, developed some plans, a lesson plan, and really sat with our teachers and went through how to develop an effective plan, took our students and actually modeled the lesson with our students. And we made sure a representative from every grade level was in that room to watch that modeling occur. And then from there, we watched our teachers implement, take that feedback, take those lesson plan components and turn it around on their own in their instruction. And so we want to continue to do some of that work there. So whenever we see our teachers' gaps, we are ready to target, and that goes with our TOA, theory of action, giving them differentiated professional development to support them. So additional artifacts would be lesson plans. Every week, our teachers are turning in those lesson plans, and we're really giving them clear feedback on whether the lesson plans are aligned. I am holding my instructional leadership team responsible for making sure we are all understanding what are those upcoming concepts and how to teach those upcoming concepts with fidelity. Again, DDAP templates are collected, as well as ensuring that our teachers understand how to pull those reports after every single assessment and how to use that data as a driving force for next steps. I want to now access the PowerPoint here and discuss the process for how we're rating how we're doing or how we're rating our progress in successfully completing every milestone. And the first thing we are doing, again, is as the instructional leadership team, as we collect the artifacts, we're being very transparent and saying, are we doing the work or are we not? What is working well and what is not? What do we need to go back and clarify and try to tweak in order to create the best next steps in the next plan for effective implementation. So the ILT, we are meeting weekly. We did review our cycle 1 artifacts, and then from there we determined progress. We were able to rate ourselves whether we were on track, whether we made significant progress on each action step, or whether we did not meet it. And we are glad to say only one of those action steps out of all of the milestones that we did implement for cycle 1, we are carrying that over to cycle 2 for December, January, and February to ensure that our teachers are understanding and knowing how to implement do-nows and exit tickets and things like that effectively. So we are developing a system for tracking. From there, after the ILT met, we then got our grade chairs involved. And our grade chairs, we looped them in. It's important as they drive the work on their teams. So they did sit in, and then we discussed the ILT's results. And they were able to tell us, yay, no, we quite didn't get there. And so our team is very transparent, and that's the culture that we've created at Major. They agree, disagree, and then we went back and rated if necessary. From there, we are celebrating a lot of success milestones here, and I want to name a few today. Is basically the first thing is the language of all of our stakeholders is all about growth. We are growing scholars, and our teachers are pumped up, and they're ensuring that our scholars are growing. One thing that we are working on is not letting the teachers get too overwhelmed with worried about, oh my goodness, the students are not at meets and masters just yet. Yes, but understand where they are now. What do we need to close those gaps to get them there, and are they making progress? So looking at our district resources such as Edmentum and all of those things that we are implementing in spring, and just really taking it one step at a time so that we can reach our ultimate goal. The next success, leaders are recognizing when an unbalance of forces occur. My leaders were shocked when we met in November. And so basically, September, great kickoff. October, a little rocky. But then they went from having checks, meaning they are implementing things with fidelity and making great strides and progress, to just basic, minuses on you forgot the work here. You have to go back and find out how to balance the right work, so you're just not working but focusing on the right work. So that is helping our leaders to take a moment to reflect. And teachers are taking ownership for student achievement, planning effective lessons, and so we do see some great lessons happening this year. There are still a few gaps, but we're working on closing those gaps, making sure teachers are teaching relevantly and also rigorously in those classrooms. Scholars are showing more concern and care about learning and meeting their goals. I love my TIP team as they came. We did have a TIP visit, in which is Ms. Broughton, and then Dr. Watson comes over a lot. And so basically she does give us, they both give us input, but one great thing is for one visit, the teachers were focused on student trackers. Our students are tracking their learning, they're owning their learning. But to hear a student look at their data and say, oh my goodness, I got meat, that was a wow factor, and that was not planned. And so to have that team walk around, and we see teachers engaged with the data conferences on the elementary level as well as just as Lift 6. So students are tracking their own data. But goal data and student growth conferences are expected. That is our expectation. Conferences after every examination. It's just not taking a test and leaving the data there and is euphoria aware. It's taking those data templates and making sure teachers understand their gaps and where the students are growing throughout the year. So what are our next steps? We're going to continue this push. We want to continue to be consistent with meeting our milestones from Cycle 1. We're going to continue to monitor our student achievement. Yes, we are pushing students to meets and masters. You walk into major, there is that data board there. We have a little football theme, and so we have one teacher over here by himself. However, that's his meets percentage, and we said, ooh, we have a football guy just kicking that ball, and we're like, oh man, only one teacher got almost a touchdown at meets, but everyone else is clustered in that 30 and 20 and almost 40% zone where we want to be. But we want to keep encouraging our teachers to keep pushing until that field goal and make that touchdown. Let's see, closing teacher gaps. We will continue to close teacher gaps, address teachers' misconceptions, because it's just not our scholars who may have misconceptions, but our teachers as well. Providing support through data-driven action plans. We are having even individual teacher growth conferences coming up. So I'm doing DDAPs as well as meeting with teachers side by side. And we're looking at students individually. This is how they came to major at this level. It is our job to grow these scholars. Are you growing them? Are they red or are they green? Well, how many scholars are green? Green means I'm going up. But red means, either they're flatlined and we need to do something about that. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Robbie. Thank you.
Good evening, President Newhouse, Dr. Watson, members of the board and cabinet. It's a hard act to follow. I told her earlier this evening I was going to start calling her Shiny. Her job was to explain the format of the document to you. So our documents, the format are the same. I'm just going to share with you our action. And I have new glasses at Target, but I haven't gotten to pick them up yet. Our new essential action. Okay. So the first one for Eichenroth is focused on curriculum and assessments aligned with TEKS with a year-long scope and sequence. The reason, let me tell you our process first too. Our process was much like Ms. Dillard's. Our team got together and we talked about what do we need to focus on, where are the areas we need to learn and grow and tighten up in. And then we identified those areas, and some of them we were also very transparent with those. And so the first one was there was some inconsistency in the teachers using the curriculum the way it should be used with fidelity. And so that's just not an option anymore. So that's our first essential action. The second one was focused around objective daily driven lesson plans and the quality of those. We've gotten some freedom this year to develop lesson plans that will help teachers really be a tool, not a compliance issue, but a tool that they can use with them as they're teaching one of the requirements in my lesson plans for the teachers is that they think their questions ahead of time, put some of those questions in there so that they don't forget, because when you're in the moment, sometimes you forget to ask that really deeper level question. Sometimes they're all surface. So that's another thing. And then the third one is also data-driven instruction. And so that's our key push right now at Eichenroth, is really getting teachers to look at the data and then not only just look at it. So we have the same format, and we have evidence. So the way we did our ratings was we looked at the evidence that we collected. If it was there and we thought it was good, then we said we're making progress. Some progress, we're going to carry it over. If it was complete, we marked it complete. And so there's a lot of things that are rolling over, but there are things that we just want to keep monitoring. But we did complete some things too. So we're proud of that. So going to the slide, we're celebrating our PLCs because they're happening consistently. I'll talk about in the next steps that I want them to be a little more rigorous, and I'll be specific about that. But the PLCs are happening consistently, both planning PLCs, data PLCs, and learning PLCs. We also are really trying to hone our progress monitoring tool. Each teacher has a tool that they have to submit to me after every assessment that talks not only about what the student scored, but then how many questions they are from either moving a threshold or gaining or making progress. So we want them to make progress. That's our focus as well. And so that tool is being honed. And even yesterday, while I was looking at it again, we decided to add that we're gonna monitor the tier 1, 2, and 3 levels of students on that, so we can track that group as well. Who's a tier 3 student? Who's a tier 2 student? That kind of thing. And that's about RTI, response to intervention. So if they're tier 3, they get a lot of intervention because they have a lot of gaps that need to be filled in. So that's where we're wanting to really tighten that up on. And then, so in the PLCs, the professional learning communities, our teachers have become much more open and transparent with each other. They really have embraced, this year has been a mind shift from getting kids to pass a test, or getting kids to actually getting them to meet. Because approaching, they can pass when they approach, but when they meet, they're solidly on grade. And so our goals are all focused around that meets percentages. Because if we can get them more solid on grade, that's better for the students. It's not just about the test. I want them to do well for the rest of their lives. If we send more kids away from us with meets and masters, they're going to be more successful in whatever they do. That's the goal. It's not just about 5th grade or 4th grader. So we're celebrating those things. Next steps, going back to the data PLCs, what we've noticed is that the teachers look at data, they can talk about their data, they can tell me what teeth this student needs to help on, but then we're seeing much more of the same when they go back to the reteaching portion. So we're really going to hone in or focus in on what does that look like, looking at those misconceptions like Pam Farinas was talking about and Shmithia was talking about, looking at the actual items from the test and saying, okay, if 1, 9, and 13 all are the same TEAC tested, and the students did well on 1 and 9 and bombed 13, what's different about those questions? Is it something the teacher needs to say differently? A language issue that we're using that the students aren't understanding? Or is it a different way it's tested? Is it, what exactly is the issue? And then we're going to develop those reteach plans in those data PLCs and at-bat those so that when the teachers go back, we're not just seeing more of the same extra practice or same language or whatever. I think we know that will knock it up to the next level. And so, because I have teachers who, they can read data, they know what the kids don't know, but when they go back to the table with that student for a reteach, they're saying the same thing that they said the first time, and that's not effective. So that's what we're working on. That'll be our push for our next steps in that. Then once we've developed that with the teachers, in the teachers, and built that capacity in them, then my team's responsibility will be to make sure that we do fidelity walks to make sure those things are actually happening. The time we've spent with you in PLC, data PLCs, and we've created these plans and we've practiced with you, when we come in, we better see it. It's not an option. And so that will be one of our pushes in the next steps. And then of course, continuing to collect the data and the evidence and artifacts for the TIP. So I'm going to bring my partner back up, and if you have questions, she'll be glad to answer them.
I just kind of had a question to help me digest it more. On, for example, where we have create sample research plans under the milestone. We saw some progress there. So,
Are you talking about my campus?
reteach, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay. And I'm sorry, what was the one again?
On the milestones for Eikenrow, the one, two, three, four, five, six. It's the seventh one down. It says create sample reteach plans.
Yes.
To me, that's intervention on
Yes.
how we're reteaching. And we said we made some progress. So to me, that's kind of a critical piece. That just walked me through how we're going to gain additional progress.
Okay, that's a perfect example of what I was just talking about the teacher going back and doing more of the same. So, so in that day-to-day PLC planning, then we will be working on to create those plans and at that, which practice those plans with each other, so that that teacher who wouldn't know what to do when they bring that child back to the table is doing something more effective when they get back to the table. And so we have made some progress. We have some teachers who really jumped on that. So that's why we put some progress, but again, it's not, we need it everywhere. And although the tip is focused on, and the goals are focused on 3 through 5, we're doing this K through 5. We need all of our kids to achieve. They deserve the chance to achieve. And my teachers have the capacity to do that, and we're gonna make it happen. So, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Let me thank you guys, first of all. And I just noticed something that is prevalent, but you pointed out that some academic regression occurred over the summer, which we call summer slide. And we know that's real. So glad you pointed that out.
Does happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
And one great thing that I love about what we do in the summer to help close that gap through our 21st century programs, as well as summer school opportunities for our primary scholars, looking at that map data, and the district does have those resources in place and those summer schools in place to help keep that gap from closing. Even the GT pieces are great to keep our students at that level of rigor so they can continue to excel.
and one of the things that we do in August, I'm sure you guys do it too, pipe in if I'm wrong, is we start with the students who, because we do initial assessment in the beginning, we look at their last year, and if they slid in the summer, those are the first kids we start to intervene with our title interventionists or our teachers during the whatever it takes time. That's what we call it. It's the PLC, Professional Learning Community, built-in intervention block. And so every teacher has that time in their class, and some levels switch the kids around. Like, you're really good at teaching math, subtraction with regrouping, and I'm not. So I'll take your kids who've mastered subtraction with regrouping, and you'll take mine that, and we'll switch those for that 45-minute block. So those are the first kids. The kids you're talking about are the first kids that we intervene with.
And at Major, we do have, and I'm sure you guys do too, the student support specialists are on our campuses, and they use that BOI map data also to look at students' starting points. And from there, we do also color code those scholars and begin to intervene early on to help close those gaps. So we should see that progress. And one great thing I love are our new resources. Yes, we have our Admentum, but then we also have that Success Maker for our primary K2, and that we're now holding our teachers, and that's the next step for us, holding our teachers responsible for pulling those reports, even the leadership team, to ensure that teachers are getting those scholars on those programs, so that because they are individualized, and it's an excellent individual pathway to make sure students are moving forward based on their starting points. So we're excited about those two newly purchased technology components.
So, for Major, on one of your carryover milestones, as tracking the do nows and the exit tickets. What's exit ticket?
So an exit ticket occurs after the learning, after that tier 1 instruction has taken place. So we talk about daily learning targets. So that is my TEKs as a teacher that I'm teaching for this day, my targeted TEK. I'll unveil my lesson to the scholars, and before I move on, I want to provide for them an aligned exit ticket. So it's like a mini formal assessment, well, informal, formal assessment with the level of rigor to really assess whether our scholars actually achieve the learning target for the day. Now, although we're implementing the do nows and the exit tickets, at Major, we have what's called those trackers. We want to track our scholars by daily, basically daily, to ensure that they are achieving it. But we didn't implement that for cycle one because we really focused on student accountability, student trackers. Do students know their starting point? So I am carrying that over. I told the teachers, don't fret. We're going to do that. We did it last year, the year before, but it's really slowing down and really having additional evidence factors to track whether students are making progress.
So I know at both campuses we've got high mobility. How quickly are we assessing that new student that comes in the door and getting them acclimated, I couldn't get it out, into the process?
Yeah.
Did you want to answer that?
So each teacher, when we get a new student and they're delivered to the classroom, the first thing they're expected to do is administer a developmental reading assessment, DRA, which is an informal, but it gives you some really good information. And then our SSS map tests them in 10 days. And let students, of course, we have a 20-day window. But, so yeah, right away, because the sooner, you really can't have a plan or a map for this child unless you know the child. And so, unfortunately, a lot of the kids who come into us are mobile kids. I can remember this one fourth grader who'd been in 7 schools. I was their 7th school in the 4th grade. Not in the 4th grade, but like throughout their career into the 4th grade. And so, and there was no response intervention done. There was no paperwork to see what the child knew. That child was never anywhere long enough for someone to get to know what they did and didn't know. And so that's my purpose in life, is to understand what kids do and don't know and fill in those gaps. So my teachers know that's my purpose in life. You will find out what they know and don't know and build on what they don't know, or build on what they know to fill in the gaps where they don't.
We do the same with the DRA, finding out their level as well as map. But if they are a star level student, we also want to kind of look at their star once everything rolls over to see what they did win on, as well as their gaps if we're able to really look at that report. So once those CUME folders come over through T-Rex, we're ready to look through them, dive in. Is there any form of special program, accommodations, or, so my team actually has a flow where my folder is going to be passed from this person to this person, so the departments are looking at, basically the support that is needed for that student. So same systems, we should be doing the same system because we're spring guys.
Yeah. We're looking for the whole picture.
The whole picture of the child. So.
That's good to hear. And then a lot of our mobility is within the district, and so that probably makes it easier because we already have that assessment done.
Yep.
Good.
I
Thank
have
you.
a question, and it might be more for Ms. Oliver. On the intervention plan under action milestones, so I kept looking for quantitative data particularly under the category evidence used to determine progress towards milestone. There's lots of qualitative descriptors, and I looked through all of the ones that were here.
Yes, sir.
And for me, I just would like to see more quantitative data on our progress as we move through the cycles.
Thank you. So what we have in store for the next month is going out and quantifying the artifacts that are kept at
You
the
did
campus.
say that.
That's
I heard
okay.
you say that, yeah.
Yes, sir. So what our team will be doing with members of the Theory of Action team as well, and the assistant superintendents, is going out to visit the campuses and quantifying the artifacts that they've used then to score some progress, met, et cetera, so that we have some hard data to share with you going forward. So,
Can
thank you. That was a great question.
Can you just define artifact as it relates to this?
Yes, sir. So there are various types of artifacts. We're looking at agendas, sign-in sheets, photographs, action plans, trackers, any type of resource, I think is how it's labeled in the tip. Anything that's been identified by the campus is something that would prove that the event took place, the action took place, or the strategy was implemented.
Can you also talk that campuses are taking their DFAs now?
Yes. So the DFA window opened in the first week of December, and there's a rolling window by level. But by the time we leave for the winter holiday, all of the campuses will have administered assessment in the STAR tested grades and subjects.
And so that's where we're really going to monitor and look at that quantitative data. Our curriculum department developed that district formative assessment based on the TEKS that we've taught all the way through from the beginning of the year until now December. And so the schools right now are in the midst of doing those assessments. And we'll be ready to have those data discussions when we come back in January. And then that will determine the pathway that we design for every single student. We will do another benchmark, what we call benchmarks, right before the STAR test. So we'll have those district-wide measures that we can say, district-wide, this is where we are, before we take the STAR exam. And then, of course, our campuses do their own assessments.
So I just, right before I came over here, I was reading about the result of the state's determination of the readability of the STAR exam. And it turned out kind of the way I thought it would. I'm not surprised, but we're doing map testing for our DFA. Is that what that is?
No, for our district benchmark, no, it's created, our curriculum department, and I know Ms. Bradford may want to explain more, but I know we had, it is STAR-like format.
Okay.
So, and so can you share with me, I guess probably Chief Hinojosa, the DFA is done, it's a benchmark.
Yes.
So we're in December.
Yes.
What benchmarks do we do at what point in order to track our kids?
Yes, so definitely, and the campuses, and I know we've got our elementary principals here, but also our middle school principals. Each campus does their own campus-based assessments. The beauty of this is also our curriculum department has designed our curriculum where we have units. I think you remember seeing that. And unit exams have been built into the curriculum. So for example, our high schools, under our charter where we're monitoring the progress for our EOCs, they're being very faithful in implementing the curriculum and then doing the unit exams. At the campuses, grade levels are creating their own campus-based assessments. And we track, the assistant superintendents work with the principals, and we track those school-based, campus-based assessments. District-wide, we've created our district-wide benchmark where everyone is taking the same exam. Because even though, for example, Major and Eichenroth did an assessment, the week of October the 20th, their assessments are a little bit different because their teachers are creating those assessments. But at this time in December, we are taking the same test district-wide, and we will be able to see, I will be able to see how Eichenroth performs on this curriculum-based assessment in comparison to Major, in comparison to the district. And then again, we'll do those benchmarks in the springtime. But ongoing, every campus, the expectation is that they do their own assessments. The secondary level, we do it at 3 weeks and then at 6 weeks. At the elementary level, because we are 9 weeks, it is really based on the units and how often they are tracking. So they will do anywhere from 2 to 3 before we end the semester.
So if I'm understanding correctly, they're built in units with the scope that they're on.
Yes, they're built in units based on that scope and sequence that was developed.
That means it's ongoing and we can be better reactive.
It is ongoing, better response, and part of what we built into the scope and sequence in every school is we give those assessments, and so you've heard the data-driven instruction. So we teach, test, we stop with our teachers, we determine what our students need, and then we have to go back and reteach. We can't just keep moving forward. We need to stop and analyze that data, have those data talks not only with the teachers, but the data talks with the students, spend a day reteaching, filling in those gaps, and then moving forward. So the teach, stop, test, revisit, reteach, and then moving forward.
Any other questions?
Well, I have been comparing both of your plans and looking for commonalities, and I see an emphasis on the actual curriculum and instruction that's being delivered, and also the data and examining that. But Major, I noticed that you had a priority on team building and really communication between the instructional leaders and the teachers. And it looks like you are really making progress in that area. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I noticed that both of you have mentioned at bat tonight. And I will tell you that because I am kind of an observer, semi-participant in a PLC on an ongoing basis, if you're an extrovert, I think that that's a wonderful time to shine and perform for other people. But people like me, that is a very stressful thing to teach a lesson to your colleagues and to pretend like you're teaching it to students. So that was just more challenging than I expected it to be. And I will tell you that very worthwhile because it does make you be on your best game. And I just thought that it was interesting that you're both using that technique, and I
Thank you. And
congratulate you.
Thank you. And with our, on the side of the novice or the timid teacher who may feel that way, one great thing about our teachers is they support each other. And so we tell our expert teachers, just be quiet, let them have the floor, encourage them. And so they're doing a little encouragement, letting them take the center stage, and then their contribution is just to add on. If they make mistakes, we do have a culture where they will say, this is how I would actually, or this is what I'm thinking about doing for my lesson, upcoming lesson. And then you do see teachers taking notes and jotting down those ideas and taking them back.
And really, I just love the colleagues sharing best practices with each other, and that you're now going to disseminate it to the district. This is just wonderful through the Schoology. But I noticed that both of you also listed not only the agendas and sign-in sheets and things like that, but you also had student data on your evidence used to determine progress toward milestones, so that you had very, very similar things there. We have one of our favorite posters we have at our home is a picture of a toilet as a software system. And one of the things on the poster is it's never done until the paperwork's done. Okay, so I'll just leave you with that.
Okay, Debbie.
Takes me a while to process.
It's life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On that note, we will end and say thank you.
There is one more slide to share with you. I wasn't sure if you had a chance to kind of tally up or find out where our 7 schools are collectively, but I wanted to share this slide with you about the 7 schools tips that you reviewed this evening. So we had 7 campuses, 62 rated milestones or strategies among the 7 tips. And here is the breakdown then for those 7 schools of their success. So I just wanted to give you a moment to glance through that, to just see where we are as a foundation, setting the foundation and building systems and processes so that we can boost achievement.
Just one comment. When I was looking at the information, I did note some progress. I don't know if we can quantify that, a little better. I don't know what some progress means.
Yes, those are the terms that the template uses, or TEA uses. So what we're looking at here is probably less than half of the progress that was expected. And in many cases, some progress is, I meant to have all 3 grade levels, 6 through 8, accomplish something, and I have progress in 6th grade, but maybe my 7th and 8th are not there yet. So there isn't a numeric value for these. They're the labels that were a part of the tip creation.
Okay.
So less than half is kind of where my head is, but not something that has a clear number defined.
Yeah. Noted.
And
Thank
for
you
the
for your
no
time this evening.
progress, we have someone working with them.
We do. Yes, ma'am, that's correct. Thank you for your time this evening. And if you have any other questions, I'm happy to entertain them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Oliver. Thank you. For our next item, I'd like to recognize our internal auditor, Patricia Rios.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide our mid-year progress report. And actually, I'm old school, so I want to make sure that we read the same page numbers. Since the principals are here, though, I do want to thank the principals that they are very helpful every time we do an audit at the campus.
Oh, they just.
They missed it.
So the purpose for the mid-year progress report, one of the things that I wanted to tell you before I start is that during this Thanksgiving break, one of the things that I was very thankful is that actually is my 4th year in the district. So I always say, if I pass 3, I'm set. So we're good. It started in November 2015, Mr. Adams, so actually I had to rebuild the internal audit department, and this is where we are right now. So I wanted to give you a little background. But the purpose for the mid-year progress report is to provide you information of the assurance services, consulting services, and other activities of the internal audit function. So that is if you look at page 4 of the paper that I gave you, it's also, I'm providing a revised internal audit plan for the fiscal year, and it was just a minor change. If you look at the end, it's actually a bigger calendar because that one is kind of small, so I wanted to give you a bigger calendar at the end of the page. After the blue page, you will see the better calendar. So actually the only change that we made from the last time is that we moved the capital fixed assets inventory audit to April of 2020. And the reason for it is because, number one, they're setting up the new system, but number two, they're looking for a new director. Hopefully that he can find a new director for the for the warehouse.
It's only been a couple weeks.
Yes, yes. And so that will, I always like to give an opportunity when there is no director to find a new director, and sometimes they do implement new areas, so I wanted to give you that opportunity for them too. So that's why we move it to April. However, starting in January, you will see in our calendar, we are going to be very busy, only because we start the payroll audits, which finance already, we agree upon that January was a good month to start. And then also, we are doing a preliminary steps for the attendance audit. So I'll be visiting campus again, so in January for attendance. And that is only to continue to monitor attendance, and that will help you also to meet your goals. So, but that is the only change that I had made for the audit plan. So if I wanted to go back to page 5 in the report, and that gives you all the reports that we have completed. The president and the superintendent gets a copy of the audit report, but obviously all the board members are welcome to review those reports, and Ms. Newhouse or the superintendent has those for you. So I want to make sure that you know which ones we have finished and which ones we're still in progress. And so that will, I separated between financial, operational, and we started activity funds already. So we have visited a lot of elementary schools. I started in October. But one of the areas that I continuously are concerned with middle schools is in terms of the secretary is everything, meaning the secretary is the bookkeeper, and the secretary is also the secretary for the principal. And those two positions are very difficult, and that's why they don't do very well with the activity funds. Mainly because they are not like an elementary school. Middle schools do have all different clubs. They have football, they have, cheerleading. So all these sponsors will bring money to the campuses, and you are only having one bookkeeper that is also the secretary. That's payroll. Payroll is number one. So secretaries will focus on that number one, but in activity funds will focus secondly because they don't have the time. So that's the major concern that I always had. I had said it before, that, and I know that we're working in terms of budgets, but that it will be a position that they might consider in the future if they have funds. Only because I know we did Sims clerks, which it was a must, and we'll prove it when we come back to the schools. But bookkeepers in the middle schools are very important. High schools do have a secretary and do have a bookkeeper separate, but not middle schools. And they have almost the same activity with the sponsors. So those are the only concern that I have with the activity funds. And I know Ms. Westbrook probably agrees with me.
We certainly do agree, and that's actually something that we've brought through a couple of budget sessions. It's been probably about 3 or 4 years since we've brought that as something to consider to the board. And so, yes, I think our teams have been on the same page for quite some time now as far as that goes. So it would be beneficial. Yes.
Yes. So if you look in at page 6, also it gives you the details of the fraud hotline reviews that we have had this year. And also, obviously, we'll start attendance in the campus starting in January, but we actually do the testing starting in February. So we will be visiting the campus at that time. Obviously, on page 7, we have the list of the consulting services and non-audit services that we provide. One of the areas that I always tell departments, especially in data management and technology, I provide them consulting services for them, only to make sure that they understand what are the items I'm looking for and how can I add value to their process. And so they take that opportunity, and this is what I tell them: use me. I have the expertise to tell you what works and what doesn't work in a processes. So I have listed also all the items that we have worked with the booster clubs, providing the fraud awareness training. That I'm also making sure that they do understand. So that's the next item that we'll provide for the principals too, is the fraud awareness training in next year. So hopefully we can do that. On page 8, I provided a little of data for Mr. Adams in terms of how many cases have we had for the year. Just so you know, in October 2016, that's when I implemented the fraud hotline. The key for the fraud hotline is not how many cases you have. The key is what process do you have to handle those investigations. And so I have provided Dr. Watson and Ms. Newhouse a flow chart of how we follow up. And I guarantee you, and Ms. Newhouse knows that, I will follow up until the end, and I will not close a case until administration has reviewed it. So those are the items that I wanted you to know. It's real hard to say does it work or doesn't work, but it is a preventing tool. And so one of the things that you want to give a message to everybody is that there is a fraud hotline, and somebody will report you. And so that helps me, because we remember we only 2 in the district that we audit the entire district. So, and you have 38 schools, you added 2 this year, so you have 40, and you're gonna be adding more in the following year. So that, adds more in terms of being on the lookup. So I just want you to know that. And hopefully that helps, because I want to make sure I give you some type of data on that. On page 9, I gave you a little of information of our staff size. Obviously, we only 2. I started as a 1 though, so that's, that's a 50% improvement that we have. So I'm starting to be 2. Now, we do have certifications though, and I listed those certifications that we have. Actually, this Saturday, our staff audit specialist graduates from her bachelor's degree into the science of business. So she'll be graduating this Saturday. That's why she's not here today. But Christine Trevino is graduating this Saturday. So congratulations to her.
Yes, please give her our congratulations.
Yes. So, but also she was able to accomplish her first TASBO certification, which is Certified Texas School Business Officials. So those are one of the areas that I always like to implement is to provide training, and even for myself. That's why sometimes you don't see me on Tuesday night, because I am in trainings, and just because you always have to update yourself in terms of what internal auditor should do, how can I add value to you and to the district, and that's what I'm here for. That's my primary goal. It's not coming to get the principals, although they feel that way sometimes. It's really not. It's just to, if you don't know what is wrong, you will not know how to correct it. And sometimes you have to look for a person outside of your school to know that. So it is hard at the beginning, but I think we are trying to do a good job in terms of let them know that we're not there to get you. Even the departments, I very flexible and tell them, okay, if you need this or you need an explanation, I take my time. The same with the board. You are welcome to come anytime to my department, even though it's a small one. I'm in Portable 91 right here across. So you know that I'm always open, and my calendars will be open for you anytime that you have any questions. So with that, I will ask you if you can put this mid-year progress report and the internal audit plan into the Tuesday consent agenda. And the reason for doing that is because if you don't approve it in a consent agenda, it is not a final report. So that's why it becomes a final report when you do that in the consent agenda. Any questions?
I did have one on
Yes.
the all of the audit plan or audits that you've completed, and there's
Yes.
quite a few on here, so
Yes.
lots of good work. Is it possible for us to be? I mean, I don't need to see the whole report, but I would like some kind of a report or analysis or findings from what.
A summary, I can provide a summary report of all the findings that we have by operational and activity funds, and I can do that, and I will provide it to Ms. Rhonda Newhouse so that she can distribute that. So yes, most definitely I can do that for you.
It's interesting to me that most of the fraud hotline is not reporting fraud.
Yes, yes.
You get quite a variety of complaints, don't you?
It is a different complaints. One of the things sometimes it does not need to be cash itself. It could be just not following a board policy. So yes, it's different. And sometimes we do have complaint lines. So those, those are the ones, the items that you can't avoid. But the ones that they have in the report that it was a memorandum, it was because it's actually we did have to follow up a true investigation of the area. So yes.
Well, congratulations to both you and Christine. It's just
thank you.
been so amazing watching your growth
Yes.
over the last few years. Do you still have your secretary?
I still have my secretary.
Good,
If you
good.
see my, yes, it's in page our organization is in page 11. And you see the secretary, I still have her. I use her mainly for all my work papers that we have to do. Obviously, in my 5th year, which is gonna be, well, this is 4th, so not next year, but the following year, we'll have an external self-assessment that those are the people who audit us. So sometimes they say, who audits the auditor? Well, that's where the quality assessment report is actually from the outside person coming in to look at what work have I done, and also to look how the board, is helping me and how independent I am in terms of the reports. So that's will be coming in not 2020, but the following.
So I will comment
Yes.
that for those of us that were here when you joined us, we had a lot of opportunity for growth in this department. So
Yes.
she literally did build it from the ground up.
Yes.
And it's a great job here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and one reason why we really needed you, really needed you,
I was being nice.
was that we're not looking at always comprehensive oversight of the overlord, auditor, or anything like that, but that you really look at inventory and you look at activity funds and you do training, and there are just so many things that are complementary to our wonderful financial department. So
Yes.
really, we wanted both functions working.
Thank you. And that is to provide to provide value to your organizations. And so, yes, that is my focus. And sometimes it's very busy, but yes, we'll do as much as we can.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And
Other
we
than that,
we did read between the lines that we're at 40 schools and expanding, and you have 2 people.
yes, yes. And next year you will be having more middle schools, and so yes, it's something that sometimes you have to consider. But yeah, at this time we are okay. We just very busy, and that's why you will see that sometimes we have to split. Right now, Christine is doing the activity funds, and I'm doing the departments in South. So that's why we had to start splitting. And before it was both of us going, and I had the opportunity to meet with the principals, which I like because I like for them to completely understand. I would not leave that audit until they have understood all the observations. And sometimes, you have to just take the time to explain. So yes, thank you.
Thank you for being our set of eyes, another set of eyes for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. For our next item, I'd like to once again recognize our Chief School Leadership and Student Support Services, Dr. Henna Hosen.
Thank you, Ms. Newhouse and Dr. Watson, members of the board. This is just an MOU with Lone Star North Harris campus. As you know, we have our early college, high school out there, and this MOU will allow us to use common areas, common spaces, such as auditoriums, other conference rooms that they have available. We have an MOU already for the early college. We just need another MOU between both organizations to allow us to use the other additional rooms. So I'd like to request that you place this on our consent agenda for Tuesday.
Any questions about it, anyone?
Well, I did notice on page 43 that you have the TSI testing, and I have a granddaughter in early college, and I understand that you have to pass your TSI to take the courses at early college, so she's looking forward to that.
Yes, and we're looking forward to her passing it. Yeah. But we've done a lot of prep and across the high schools, but especially at early college. That is one of the requirements, and we are fortunate now to be on the campus and be able to administer the tests there. So you can see the roster. Thank you for pointing it out, Dr. Jensen. Lone Star asks us to be very specific. When are you going to use these rooms? What rooms do you want to use? And so we've detailed it out for them.
So
That is a
tonight,
very nice
on
schedule.
page 44, there's a meeting going on right now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
The parent dual credit mandatory meeting. Boy, have I heard about that. Okay.
Thank you. We'll place this item on the consent agenda for next week. For For our next item, I'd like to recognize our Chief Human Resources Officer, Dion McKeithen.
Good evening, President Newhouse, Dr. Watson, other members of the board. If you would join me on page 45, we do have an update to the 2019-2020 compensation plan, and specifically in the substitute staff salary schedule. So if you would join me on page 49 of that schedule, we've had in our compensation plan that the board has approved, when there are times when we're unable to find substitutes to cover a class, and in those instances, there's a couple of things that our campuses do, and one of those items is sometimes they have to split classrooms where students go into other classrooms with other teachers, and one of the pieces in our compensation plan that's allowed for is that when teachers you split those classrooms and students go into those classrooms, they're able to receive additional compensation for those additional students. What we wanted to do here is really clarify the language, because there's a couple things that that we've seen over the years, and wanted to make sure we provided clarity. So, for example, in our elementary, pre-K through 4, the student to teacher ratio is 22 to 1. And there's instances where some of our teachers may have classrooms, class sizes that are less than that. And even if you split a classroom, if you still are below that 22 to 1 ratio, what we're saying in this particular language is that you wouldn't receive additional compensation. It's only when those split classrooms cause you to go outside or above that student to teacher ratio that we've identified in our staffing guidelines. So that's 22 to 1 for pre-K through 4. That's 25 to 1 in 5th grade, 30 to 1 in middle schools, and 33 to 1 in high schools. And so anytime there's a split classroom and you receive additional students that go above that ratio, we're wanting to make sure that our teachers are compensated for receiving those students and providing that support when split classroom is necessary.
How competitive are we with our substitutes compensation? Because I have been told, but I've been told a lot of silly stuff sometimes, that we are nowhere close to the surrounding districts. And I was under the impression we were competitive. Are we or aren't we?
Yes, so we actually are competitive. We actually just looked at our substitute salaries. Actually, we were at $75 a day, and we actually bumped that up to $90 a day for our substitutes. And so we've looked at that
That's
as well as
non-certified,
that's
right?
non-certified. And so when you go to certified, it's even more. And so even what we did as well with our substitutes says that at one time, for a long-term sub-assignment, you had to actually work 20 days in order to be considered in a long-term sub-assignment. We actually dropped that to 10 days, so you actually receive that long-term sub-assignment compensation after 10 days versus the 20 days. So again, that's when I'm looking at the environment and looking at some of our other districts, certainly we are competitive when it comes to compensation. One of the things for us is that our requirements for our substitutes, one of the things that I've seen in other districts is they're asking for even more as far as education for their subs to go into classrooms. They're actually, some districts are looking for 60 hours. Ours right now is 48 college hours versus the 60. But we believe that the quality of subs that we're getting certainly is above what we've gotten in the past. However, we're continuing to work and trying to figure out other ways to attract more subs to our district because it has been a challenge. It has been one of those things where what we've seen is that we do, which is not typical, we've actually shifted, is that we are having more success with subs going into our high schools than sometimes going into some of our lower grades, which is wasn't typical. It actually was the flip.
When did we make that increase?
Was it 18-19 budget? Yes.
I've seen the splitting of classes, and that is a miserable solution. I just hope we can keep getting subs and value them, whatever we can do to encourage people to be substitute teachers.
Yeah, our substitute team is doing quite a bit in order to one, retain the subs that we have and make sure that they're not just subs on the roll, but that they're active. Because one of the things that we want to make sure that we have is a pool of subs, but that they actually sub. And one of the things that we know is that, hey, subs are maybe subbing for us, but they're also subbing for 2 or 3 other districts, and it all depends on who contacts them first, and they have a preference as to where they want to go. So our team is trying to do proactive outreaches to subs, so it's not just getting into ASOP and then all of a sudden you're just trying to determine. We're actually making phone calls to try to proactively get and get folks into our classrooms. So there's a lot of outreach efforts that are happening right now. We're doing recognitions. Our subs are now part of the employee recognition banquet to recognize top subs and different things like that. We're really just trying to push culture and environment for our subs to get that consistency in the classrooms.
Do we do any kind of performance development training with long-term?
For our long-term subs, yes, our long-term subs, actually, they have an opportunity to participate. They're participating in PLCs, they're participating in our district professional development. They're, participating in, all the things that are happening on the campus because they are the teacher of record in those long-term sub assignments, so they get that support as well.
With our new scheduling, have we noted any changes or trends as it relates to teacher absenteeism?
Yes, so we're tracking our teacher absenteeism. We've seen some progress in our trending as far as absences. If you remember back in 17, 18, 19, we actually introduced our drawing for recognizing teachers with attendance, and we provided those incentives, and now we're launching our strategic compensation that includes absences, 4 or less absences in it. So that's a part of the plan as well. And so our tracking is showing some improvement. Specifically, I don't remember Pam and Miguel talking about it, but we're seeing some traction in our middle schools relative to teacher absences as well. There's a decline in some of those absenteeism, and then also looking at some of our other areas. So we're seeing some improvements, but we still got a long ways to go.
I'm wondering if the baked-in days off is impacting that. And we may not be able to draw a direct correlation, but it's good to hear that it's getting a bit better.
And what we'll do is in the board updates once a month, if you could add that into your section to put the quantitative data in there, then you'll have that as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So this item I'd love to have on the consent agenda for Tuesday, if possible.
Chief, Police.
So
You have another one?
I do,
Okay.
but so this one here, I'm asking the board if we could actually hold
the
and push this
compensation
one
plan? Okay.
For the second addendum for Houston Baptist University, I want to actually hold this one. We have a good partnership with Houston Baptist University. If you remember, we actually have an MOU with them where they were actually providing a cohort of individuals within our district an opportunity to not only get their master's degree, but also to get their principal certifications. And so what we wanted to do is expand that partnership. And so we've asked for additional language to be placed into the addendum that they're providing us. And so it's just with the holiday, it just didn't come back in time. So I'm waiting on that additional language to be updated. And so I'll bring it back in January once that additional language is provided.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, Chief.
President Newhouse and Dr. Watson, the board ask you to consider this MOU between Children's Safe Harbor, also known as CAC, and Spring ISD. This is a multidiscipline investigative forensic team that allows us to utilize their services whenever we're investigating child abuse or sexual abuse cases, allegations with our students and victims here in Spring. I'd also ask you to consider this to move to a consent agenda item for next week.
Anyone have any questions about it?
This is the one that provides the training in recognizing sexual abuse in children, right?
They also provide training, but mostly it's about the forensic tools that they provide us, so we can take a child down to the forensic center. They will triage the doctor, the forensic psychologist, the forensic interviewer, as well as the investigator there, so the child never leaves that center. And so it's a more harmonious, if that's possible, event.
This is
for
the
them.
one in the Rice Village, right?
Yes, ma'am, Rice Village.
I was just so impressed with their
It is.
facility and how they
I went and
run
did
their
their
business.
training. That's where I got
Yeah.
mine.
They provide a great service
Yeah.
as best as possible to victims.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank
And now our Chief of Operations Officer, Miranda.
Yes, President Newhouse, Dr. Watson, members of the board, I'm on page 60. Actually it was October, we were able to approve some additional funds for the Westfield Ninth Grade Center, and this is the corresponding GMP for that approval. This is GMP number 3 for the number 3 for the Westfield Ninth Grade Center.
I think everybody is kind of looking
Sure.
it over.
Chief, the red indications, those are descriptions of work that we rejected. Looking at page 67.
Right. No, so this is part of the VE documents, and so these are documents that, yes, in working with the contractors and the architect, the green are accepted VE, the red are not accepted VE. But being able to come back in with some of the money that you provided last time is going to give us an opportunity to come back and increase some of the things that we're able to do at that campus.
So we're
Red can turn to green.
Red and turn to green.
Potentially. As we continue to develop, the architects are finishing up on the additional scope based on the funds that were approved last time. And so as soon as the architects are in that, we're going back and having the contractor look at different things as well.
I just had a question on the 65. It says redesign the locker bases. Is that like in the dressing rooms or something? Because we put lockers out of the hall, right?
Yeah, it's probably, I would have to double check on that, but we're probably talking about in athletic areas.
Right, okay.
Those aren't academic lockers.
Okay.
So for the things that are rejected, is this, many people have inspected this, or is this our construction auditor?
Yeah, this is a lot of the how the cake's baked, right? So when we're having all of the meetings with the construction, the architect, and the campuses have input as well. During that process, there's a lot of things that are on the table that either get included or rejected depending on. The same thing happened at all of the new campuses as well. Springwoods Village, Robertson. Sometimes the architect is going in a different direction, and some of the rejections are just replacements, a different type of floor, a different type of concrete base, for example.
So, I guess I really need to thank you all in your process that you are inspecting this as it's going in, because once a building's complete, it can sure hide a whole lot of sins, can't it?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I want to give a shout out to Gary. He's not here right now. He's at home recovering from a little surgery. He's fine. He'll be back Monday. But he does a great job of that. A good example is the other 2 ninth grade centers. Gary's up at 4 o'clock in the morning when they're pouring construction to make sure that the construction is at the right depth and the right quality, because once the concrete's in, just as an example, and it sets up, there's no way to review that. And so he's there every morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, when they're doing those pours, which they do early so they have time to set during the day. But he's very diligent about that, and we have a good team that's working on that. And, along with the architects and different people that are also helping us with that.
Thank you. Will Gary be here Tuesday?
He should be, yes.
Okay, well, get him a get well card.
Right. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Miranda. So, we're down to Miss Westbrooks. We always have her at the end, don't we?
Yes. I consider it saving the best for last. That's just my opinion.
Always,
Yes.
always.
Okay. So we only have a couple of quick items here tonight. One is you have a copy of the popular annual financial report, a bound copy. And so, of course, last month we brought the comprehensive annual financial report as well as the audit report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2019. And the PAFR is an excerpt from the comprehensive annual financial report. And of course, this one is designed to help our taxpayers understand how their tax dollars are being spent to educate our students. And it's in a much more easy to understand, reader-friendly format. And this is, I think, the 5th year that we've done the PAFR, and it's been well received. We've received some good comments from our taxpayers. We've gotten some happy elevates as well. And as has become our customary routine, we will continue to mail this out. And so we have approximately 10,000 residences that will mail a copy of this to. And that should be in their mailbox, hopefully around the time that we leave out for the Christmas holidays. Okay. If everyone's ready, then we'll move on to page 72.
Ms. Westbrook,
Yes.
I did want to point out, whenever I've been telling people that 86% of our general fund, well, M&O fund, goes to payroll, but now it's gone up to 87.82%.
Yes. Yes.
And people are just dumbstruck.
Mm-hmm.
I think they think we're, I don't know.
Right. That is always an alarming percentage, and we have said for many, many years that it's at least 85%, and you're correct, it's going up each and every year. And so with things like what happened with the last legislative session, and we're putting more funds into teacher pay, then we'll see that percentage continue to go up.
Well, I love this going into payroll because I think it helps our whole community.
Yes.
Then people have more money to spend.
Yes. That's true. Okay, our next item is on page 72, and that's our monthly list of taxpayer refunds. So if there are any questions on the list? If not, then if there are no questions on the taxpayer refunds, then I'd like for us to look at our last monthly report that we see, and that's on page 76, the very last page of the binder. And that's the cooperative purchases that are $50,000 or more. And as always, if there are any questions on that, then I'll ask my team to help answer those questions along with me.
Well, I'll ask about the professional development here. How is the Engage to Learn PD going?
Okay, it's going really well. They actually were the team that worked with us to develop our empowered learning model and a lot of components around blended learning. And they also come into the district to provide coaching directly to teachers, as well as some executive coaching to the principals at those respective campuses. And recently, they've started working with our instructional coaches, our literacy, and our math coaches to provide some coaching to the coaches about just coaching. So they've done coaching for coaches. So we're rolling out a 3-day coaches academy just to support the coaches, not around the content, but around the interactions and the coaching relationship that they have with teachers.
Region 19, is that Austin area or anybody?
Where's Region 19? I'm not sure.
2 seconds, I'll find it.
I think it's maybe closer to El Paso area.
Exactly.
It's
You're
El
right.
Paso
Yes.
area.
Very good.
Wow, that's quite a hike. Thank you.
There are no further questions. That's my last item, President Newhouse.
Thank you, Ms. Westbrooks. Trustees, we will now recess this open session and convene in a closed meeting in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.071, for the purpose of a private consultation with the board's attorney on any or all subjects or matters authorized. Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.072, for the purpose of discussing the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.074, for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, or to hear complaints or charges against a public officer or employee. Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.076, to consider the deployment or specific occasions for implementation of security personnel or devices. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of the discussions in the closed meeting will take place after the board reconvenes in open session. The time is now 9:03 p.m. We will now reconvene and resume the work session of the Board of Trustees. The time is now 9:56 p.m. We have no items to discuss from closed session. There are no motions for a closed session, so I will entertain a motion that we adjourn a meeting for tonight.
Madam President, I move we adjourn.
I second.
It's been moved by Jana Gonzalez, second by Chris Bell, that we adjourn the meeting. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. The time is now 9:56. We are officially adjourned.